Welcome. I'll call the meeting to order. Today we're going to start, as always, with the Pledge of Allegiance and a prayer. Our pastor called in sick this morning, so I'm going to ask a little trial by fire for Commissioner-elect Weitzel. He's going to say our prayer this morning, and so we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, let's pray. Father God, we thank you for the opportunity to gather today to represent the people of Reno County. Lord, we pray that you would give us wisdom to make proper decisions, and that we would keep in mind that everything we do reflects on our commitment to you. We ask this all in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. If there's no objection, I'd like to go ahead and do number 6, and swear Commissioner Weitzel in immediately. Is that okay? No objection. I think the judge is here.
Please raise your right hand. Do Do you, John Weitzel, solemnly swear or affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Kansas and faithfully discharge the duties of Reno County Commissioner for District 4, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Last these signs there.
Congratulations. Thank you very much, sir.
Congratulations, Commissioner Weitzel.
Thank you
Welcome.
very much.
We do not have any other announcements this morning. Just want to welcome everybody to our Tuesday meeting, January 24th. Is there anyone here from the public who wants to speak on an item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on. Does the commission have any additions or revisions to the agenda they'd like to propose? Hearing none. Staff have any?
No.
None. Okay, got 6 done. I asked that the consent agenda be split into 2 items because there's a pretty heavy list from the Public Works Department. So we'll do that second, and Public Works Director Don Britton is here to maybe give a quick overview on number 8. So we'll do number 7 first, consent agenda. Are there any questions, or is there a motion to approve?
I would just like to say that I did ask about 7C and whether or not that was bid, and I was told that Foley is the only place in the area that can rebuild that, and so that's the reason why it was not bid.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I so move. Move to approve the consent agenda as presented by staff.
The second, Commissioner Weitzel. Any other discussion? Any questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Hurst,
Yes.
Commissioner Parks,
Yes.
Commissioner Bowden,
Yes.
Commissioner Weitzel,
Yes.
Commissioner Friesen.
Yes. Number 8 is the consent agenda for Public Works items done. Can you come up and just briefly outline what you have here?
Good morning, Commissioners. Donnie Britton, Reno County Public Works Director. The first item, this is a bridge that was awarded to KDOT off-system bridge program for an 80% state, 20% county construction cost. In addition, I applied for county forces to perform the construction inspection for KDOT, and this is for KDOT to pay for 80% of that. So county forces will be doing the inspection on this, and we'll get paid for 80% of what it costs us to do that. So we'll charge KDOT. So I recommend you approve and sign this agreement. That's the first one.
You can keep going, Don. Just go through all of them.
Okay.
And if there's questions from the commission, just throw them at Don as he's going through. Any questions on 8A? Doesn't sound like
The second one, this is for the construction of Victory Road Bridge 2 miles south of the Buhler over the Little Arkansas River. We was awarded a KDOT off-system program for 100% cost of the construction of this bridge. This is the first one of these that I know of where KDOT's going to pay 100% of the bridge. And the construction cost of this bridge, I recommend you to agree and sign this agreement for KDOT to pay construct this bridge.
Any questions on 8B?
The estimated cost of this bridge is $820,000 that they will pay for.
8C.
This is agreement between Reno County and Swab-Eden for the engineering design for the Victory Road Bridge for the sum of $58,900. I recommend that you agree and sign this agreement for the design of this bridge.
This is basically our only out-of-pocket expense on that bridge.
Yes.
Questions on 8C?
The last one, this is for a contract between Reno County and L&M Contractors with the construction of the Sylvia Road Bridge, 1499, 1 mile south of Sylvia. This is a bridge replacement for the sum of $1,034,309.75. This was the low bid. I recommend you agree and sign this contract for an L&M to build this bridge.
And this comes out of your budgeted bridge.
Yes, this is budgeted, and it came under the engineering estimate and under what I have budgeted for it.
This is a little information about this road and this bridge. Even when K-14 was on Seagull Road and using that the road before they changed the direction of K-14, there was more traffic, according to KDOT, on this Sylvia to Turon Road than there was on K-14 highway, the old K-14 highway.
Any questions for me? Thank you, gentlemen.
Sir. Can I get a motion to approve the Public Works consent agenda?
I'll motion to approve that.
Commissioner Parks motions and
I'll second.
Commissioner Bogner seconds that. Any final discussion on any of these? And I just want to say that there's a lot that was expended here in this Public Works agenda. If I know there's 3 new commissioners here, if you ever want a more robust discussion, feel free to ask the chair, ahead of time if they can put that on business items. But generally, Don does a pretty good job hacking through all of the detail and giving us a good report. And so we felt pretty good about having them on consent, but don't hesitate to ask for one to be pulled out of the consent agenda if you want. So, and that applies for any consent agenda. We've always pretty much deferred. If there's an item that you want to pull out, we'll vote on it separately. So that makes sense?
Yes.
With that, roll call, please.
Commissioner Hurst?
Yes.
Commissioner Parks?
Yes.
Commissioner Bogner?
Yes.
Commissioner Weitzel?
Yes.
Commissioner Friesen?
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. Okay, the next item is the reorganization of the county commissioners. Every year we need to appoint a chair and vice chair. In the process of looking at how to manage this, and this is the first time I've ran nominations as chair. I reviewed the since we don't have a policy. I think generally we defer to Robert's Rule of Order, and so Randy, we gotta stop saying Randy. Administrator Partington distributed out to you guys what I suggested for the nomination process. Is there any concern with that approach? Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to take nominations from the floor. You don't need to get recognition to nominate someone. You can nominate yourself if you want. There does not need to be a second for the nomination, and you can only nominate one person. Are there questions on that? So we'll go ahead and open the floor for nominations for chair.
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Ron Hurst for chair coming year.
Commissioner Bogner nominates Commissioner Hurst. Are there other nominations for chair?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd nominate yourself, Daniel Friesen.
Commissioner Parks nominates Commissioner Friesen for chair. Are there other nominations? Hearing none, unless there's objection, we'll close the nominations for chair, and we will do a vote. we can do it two ways. We can do a roll call, and you can indicate who you would like to vote for. I think that's the way we'll do it, if that's okay.
Can I ask a question? Okay, so the question I've got is, if I call one of you and say, hey, I'd like this to be on the agenda, and it's controversial or you don't like it, will you put it on the agenda anyway, or will you keep it off the agenda? Because the chair has a lot of power, and so that's my main concern, is if I can get something on the agenda, even if it's not popular.
I mean,
I would rather that person go to the administrator and then let him bring it back to the chair. And then I think that anything brought up by a commissioner should be considered.
I would say that Commissioner Whitesell certainly would want to make sure we entertain all ideas of the commission, and I think it's a great way to kind of get new ideas in here, to put new ideas on the agenda, so I'd certainly support new items you might have.
I think that the chair doesn't have all that much power. I think it's a shared power between the commission. Yes, there are some things that the chair does. I don't think, I have never found that much power in being a chair, okay, when I was.
Any other questions? Okay. What we're going to do, we're going to do a roll call. When Cindy calls your name, you say Commissioner Friesen or Commissioner Hurst. And make sense? Okay. Cindy, roll call, please.
Commissioner Hurst.
It's one of those things I hate to do, vote for myself, but yes.
You're voting for Commissioner Hurst.
Yeah.
Commissioner Hurst. Commissioner Hurst.
Okay. Commissioner Parks.
Commissioner Friesen.
Commissioner Bogner.
Commissioner Hurst.
Commissioner Weitzel.
Commissioner Friesen.
But you put under the gun right away, didn't I?
So I got to break the tie
You're the tiebreaker.
to vote for myself.
Okay.
Commissioner Friesen. So Chair-elect is Commissioner Friesen. Is there a nomination for for Vice Chairman?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate Randy Parks.
Commissioner Whitesell nominates Commissioner Parks for Vice Chair. Other nominations?
I move the nomination cease. Cast a unanimous ballot for Commissioner Parks.
I'll second that.
There's a motion to close the nomination for Vice Chair. I don't think that requires a debate. Roll
No.
call on that.
Just a vote.
Commissioner Hurst.
Yes.
And we're just,
Commissioner
this
Parks.
is just clarification, we're voting to cease nominating now.
And elect.
Well, I think
Cast
you
a
need,
unanimous ballot for Randy Parks as vice chair.
we're going to vote to cease the nomination, and then I think we'll go to the next step. So
Okay.
Cindy, please.
Commissioner Bogner.
Yes.
Commissioner Weitzel.
Yes.
Commissioner Friesen.
Yes. Okay, that passes. Since there's only one, we can do a voice vote. All in favor of Commissioner Parks for Vice Chair, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes 5-0. Okay.
Now your jobs don't die.
This is,
Learning curve is there,
I
right?
tell you what, Commissioner Hurst, this is a lot harder with 5 commissioners to navigate all of the votes and so forth. So it's definitely a challenge. Are you guys ready for business items? You want to take a break? You want to keep moving? Just got started. Okay. So item 10A is the Horizons quarterly report. Randy?
I'm not sure if Horizons is here,
Not here.
so
We
Okay.
can come back to that, can't we?
Yeah, we'll put that on the table for a moment. And item 10B is consideration of $5,000 in land purchase from the Perkins for future site of Fire District Number 7.
Good morning, Travis Vogt, County Fire Administrator. So before you, you have a proposal to purchase a lot in the city of Turon for Fire District Number 7. Before I took this position, I believe it was in 2019, Fire District 7 had approached the commission about an upgrade to their fire station. At that time, they were denied that upgrade. Since I've taken over, the subject's been brought up again. I've been down to their station several times, and it is the original building was built in 1947, and it was built of concrete blocks. Currently, the seams in the blocks you can see from the inside to the outside. It's not sealed up, weather tight. It has, in 1947, they didn't require tall ceilings and tall doors. In 2000, it was added on to make room for a large tender truck that would not fit in the original station, which that sufficed at the time. But now they are very limited on where they can, with any progress in trucks. The size of trucks now require taller overhead doors, much more space, and they just don't have it. And it's to the fact of the last engine that they purchased. It actually has to sit in the middle of the station, blocked in, because they were limited by height requirements. And to access the driver's side of that truck, they have to go in through the passenger side, slide across to get to it, because that's the only place that truck can go. Essentially, that station is in disrepair, and it's needed a severe upgrade for several years now. The district has been planning for it and saving money back. But the first step in that process is acquiring the land. So when they originally approached the commission several years ago, there was a lot that is directly north of the post office on Burns that was for sale. And once the commission denied the station, one of their firefighters, Anthony Perkins, knew that property probably wouldn't be sold and wouldn't be available in the future. It seems to be a prime area for an upgrade. It's 1 block straight south of where the current station is located. And so Mr. Perkins went ahead and he purchased that lot with the intent of, when the station upgrade got brought up again, that he would sell it back to the county for a building site. Mr. Perkins is asking for $5,000 for this large lot. I provided the legal description and the taken from the appraiser's website that has pictures of it. It's a very large lot. So if there was any future expansion, if a station did get built and they need to expand in the future, there's plenty of land there. One of the things that that they can't do where they're currently at is they're landlocked. It's my understanding that they approached the neighbor properties, and none of them were interested in selling and to allow for any expansion. So they're kind of limited on what they can do where they're at. I know it was asked, the question was asked if we looked at any remodel options or anything on the current site. Any money that we would spend would not be, in our opinion, would be worth putting any money into the current station, just because of the shape it's in, and the repairs that would be needed would be better spent into a new building. I've spoke with, I met with the fire chief, the assistant chief, and several of their members, and this current lot is where they all agreed on where they would like to see future expansion to happen at.
Travis, before we start discussion here, just to frame a couple things up, is this kind of an opportunistic purchase, like it's not going to be available later? And then kind of to that question, when would they have the funds to build on that?
So Mr. Perkins contacted me, I believe it was October, December, asking where we were at with this process. And I told him that we were working on getting this process started. Then he made the mention that he is ready to sell this property. And I think that if the county doesn't proceed with this, that he's going to go ahead and list it for sale. Currently, the fire district has well, they should have around $200,000 or $300,000 now in their special equipment fund. So there's plenty of money there to be able to go move forward with the project. And we wouldn't use all of those funds towards this project. We would use part of it and then either do a lease purchase with a finance company or bond it or something of that nature. But they have been saving back in their funds available there that we could start building process for that project.
Questions from the commission? Commissioner Bogner?
Two things. Do you feel this is a fair market value for the lot in Turon, Kansas?
I do.
And the other question I was thinking is, you're asking us for the funds to buy the lot, not coming out of it can't come out of your equipment fund, I take it?
No. We're asking for your approval to purchase this. The funds, this $5,000 to purchase this, and any funds related with titling and anything like that would come from the fire district. So it would all come from their special equipment fund.
What you've been planning for.
Correct. This has been, so a building has been outlined in their capital improvement project for 2022 to start this process. So they've been planning for this. So it's not something that just spur of the moment. It's been planned for a little while to approach.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission?
Yeah, I've got some questions. So I guess one of the things that concerns me is, so my house was built in 1910, and, I had kind of a similar thing. It's got the blocks, and it's come, I repaired it. And so I guess the thing that really I question is, if they're not going to do basic repairs to the fire station to keep it insulated and stuff like that, why would we give them a new building if they're not going to upkeep it? I guess is my main question. And then I also asked about cost, and I believe I was told it was estimated about $350,000 to build a new station.
Yes, the quotes I've got, to answer the second question, I reached out to a few builders, and we're looking in the $330,000 to $350,000 mark for a station for what they would need. To answer your first question, I can't speak for what's been done in the past before I got to this position. With the cinder block and how it's built now, it's just a block. There's no insulation there, period, from when it was originally built. But our big issue, not so much the upkeep of it, but it's too small. And what I would suggest is you take a field trip and we go show you the building, and so you can see for yourself. But the building is too small for what a fire department requires now. It worked great back in whenever they moved in there, and I don't know the year that they moved in there, but it worked fine for them then. It's not something that is sustainable in today's market.
What I think I've seen, and we're in that same situation, the fire districts 3 is in that same predicament up at Nickerson with regards to the fact that the new trucks today, with all the equipment and the size and necessary to meet the requirements, they're just too big, too large to fit in the normal length that the old buildings are. And so, and this is about, Doug probably helped me out here, but about 16 miles from Arlington, give or take a mile or two. And so to have a station out there is pretty important, I think, to have equipment there in that location.
Yes,
And it's just not big. You just can't make the old buildings fit anymore. Wish we could, but you just can't make them fit to what need to be done. And this is a great location right there on Main Street.
yeah, it's a prime location for a new building. If they had low response and not very many volunteers, that's something that I would consider. Do we need to spend the money? But they have a good group of people that show up. They're very reliable, and their building is basically holding them back from being able to expand to what they need. And Commissioner Hurst, pointed out that the Nickerson station. So one thing that I did when I took this position was I looked at all of our fire stations in our 8 fire districts, and to see where we were at, and basically take a survey and rate them. The station that needs addressed now would be the Turon station as number 1. Number 2 will be the station in Nickerson. But otherwise, we're sitting pretty good in the county. The districts have done very well over the last 20 years and what they've done. But the one that needs the attention now would be the Turon station, and the next one would be the station in Nickerson.
Am I correct to assume that you mentioned Nickerson as well? I've had that same conversation with Peggy out there, that they off-site one of their trucks out to the Highlands because they have nowhere to put it.
Well, they have a
Is
second.
that correct?
They have a second fire station in the city of Highlands. Then that's a fairly new station. Was built. I'm not sure what year it was, but within the last.
Because one of their trucks is stored out there.
They have several trucks up there actually.
Yeah,
so they have a second station.
So it is a problem. I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah, the new equipment just won't go inside.
Yeah, I know. So we purchased a new engine for the city of Nickerson, and there was concern whether it would fit in the station. And I think until we actually take delivery of it, whether we know it's going to fit in that station. If it doesn't, we're going to have to do some rearranging with the Highlands. But that's the problem we're running into with these older buildings, is they don't have the height and space required.
Mr. Bogner?
Had the same situation in Haven for years. Couldn't buy it until we got a new building. They couldn't buy new equipment. Pretty soon the old equipment wasn't reliable, the equipment that would fit the building, and it just got to a point where something had to be done. And so I can see what you're coming up against. That everything is bigger. And if the buildings won't hold it, they just won't work.
I would move to approve the purchase of the lot for the fire department at Turon, District 7, correct?
Motion by Commissioner Hurst, second. Second by Commissioner Bogner. I had a couple comments. Mr. Partington, what was the cost of the addition at the Bueller fire station, you remember?
Bruising, that was just north of $400,000. I want to say it was around the range of $460,000.
I have two concerns here. One is I don't think the estimates of $300,000 to $350,000 is going to get you a new fire station. Just watching the process through Bueller and the architectural requirements for a new fire station, and the electrical they want, and everything else. It's not just a shed. It's a very expensive building. The other point is I'm a little nervous without a clear plan on how we're going to do this across the county. We have how many districts? 8 districts. If they all want to do the same thing eventually, I don't know how sustainable that is. And I just think that the cost of this building is going to be twice what we think it is. The cost associated with putting this new equipment's going to be very expensive, and at some point, I think we need a strategic plan on maybe consolidating some of the districts out west, understanding how much is structure fire versus wildland fire, and maybe considering if we consolidate, having a paid professional team out there. I know I know this is a sensitive topic for rural parts of our county and those that volunteer. This is not anything against them, and it's just over time I've seen certain districts have strong leadership, strong volunteers, and then over time that can change, and it kind of ebbs and flows a little bit. And while Turon has a great force today, it may change in the future, and then what do we do? So I just feel like the plan isn't where it needs to be. I know this is a $5,000 purchase, and I'm certainly not gonna hold that up, but Commissioner Parks.
Something that I could ask, what is the construction requirements for a building? You're talking $300 and some thousand. It doesn't have to be constructed like what's on North Main.
No, and it will not be. The two quotes that I got were for just metal buildings. One was post frame, one was all metal construction.
But you can go post frame.
Yes, yeah. Well, post frame, a four bay. I have layouts, and 4 bay drive-through bay, 60 by 100, and that would have a finished office, a small office and classroom, bathrooms and mechanical room, your comment too, the price. I've already met with the contractor and the builders, and that's where I got my figures from. So that wasn't just a guesstimate on my part.
But was there an architect involved?
There was not an architect involved, but a contractor took our sketch and did it all internal and came up with this.
Part of my point is that there's inconsistency across the county. Like if you go to Bueller, they had an architect, and there was a lot of things that an architect would say are needed in a fire station. Carbon monoxide evacuation, a lot of electrical, a lot of water. Like, I don't know if all those things are considered, and so if we want to give Turon something different than we give Bueller, that's fine. But it's just an inconsistent plan.
We don't need a huge station down there. We need an area to house the trucks that is climate controlled, to where we don't have issues with pumps freezing, and that's their issue right now, is keeping that thing warm enough where they're at, so we don't have pumps freezing. And then a small area to meet with a bathroom and office. That's it. Nothing extravagant.
Well, you will have a stamp plan in that process of building that's stamped by a reputable individual with the qualifications necessary. And there's quite a bit of difference between what you're looking at here in just a basic bare building without the facilities that Bueller has to meet the requirements necessary to have that. And whether or not we may be at some point in time looking at some consolidation, but you still have equipment that could be there to help out. It's just not a case of, I don't think, of the necessary to go to lots and lots of money spending. I think just what they're asking for will work out in that rural area.
Well, let's just further this. All we're voting for today is purchase of.
Yeah, I've got one additional question. So, what happens to the old building? Does it become an eyesore, or like what are we looking at with the old fire station?
So that would be up to, I assume, the commission if you wanted to keep it or sell it. I think in the past practice has been once a department builds a new facility and they get moved, that property would come up for sale.
And then also, like in the Highlands, would it be possible to just build something on this new site and possibly look at the cost of refurbishing the current station to So basically we've got a place off-site that can store the bigger equipment. But I'm just asking questions. I don't know if that's even
So you're asking
possible.
if we build
If we
build
purchase,
another building off-site to house bigger equipment?
yeah, like if we purchase this land rather than completely moving the fire station, I'm just thinking of the taxes on that rural area, and if we're going to bond it or something like that,
John, is this something that we need to look at? I think you bring up a good point, the fact that, is this fire, I can't remember for sure, but does this fire station have common walls between the building next to it?
No.
Okay, so if it needs to be demolished or sold, it could be that way. And if it needs to be demolished, is that cost going to be on the county, or will it be on I guess it reverts back to us, so it'd be on us?
The current station?
Yeah, current station. If it's not,
If the county still owned it, we'd have to then
Yeah.
revert back to us.
either put it for sale or demolish it. I just wanted to be sure, because I couldn't remember whether it had common walls with another building or not. So, okay, so it's relatively easy to handle. Okay.
Travis, this is giving you a preview into all the questions you're going to be asked when you want to build this building.
Noted, thank you.
So today we're just buying some land in preparation for possible construction of a new fire station, which hasn't been decided yet. So if we're feel like we're done with that particular discussion, hearing no more discussion, roll call please on the motion.
Commissioner Hurst?
Yes.
Commissioner Parks?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogner?
Yes.
Commissioner Weitzel?
yes.
Commissioner Friesen?
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. I think we can swing back to Verizon's quarterly report.
Before you leave, do you have a card? Because I'd like to go down and visit that station. Give you a call and set that up. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it.
I apologize for being late. Had to take care of somebody, so. So I brought to share with you our December financials, give you an overview of how things are going so far through the year. Our gross revenue for the month of December was 1.6 million. We had deductions of 574,000. Do you guys have the?
You got the budget, Randy?
It's in the packet.
Okay. We have it.
Okay, all right. That left us a net patient revenue of a little over $1 million. When we add back in our other operating revenue of grants and state funding and county funding, our operating revenue for the month was 1.4 million. One of the things I wanted to point out on our deductions from revenue, we're seeing an increase in our charity care. We budgeted for $13,000 of charity care in the month of December, and it was $58,000. Year to date, we are sitting at $200,000 in charity care, so we are seeing a drastic increase in our charity care right now. Our expenses for the month came in at 1.7 million. So for the month of December, we had a loss of 273,000 before interest and depreciation. December typically is a slower month for us. People are on vacation. We don't see as many clients. Clients are with their families. So we anticipate that will bounce back. Any questions about our December financials? For the year to date, we are sitting at an operating loss of just 46,000.
So we have 3 new commissioners, so it might be worth just a little more overview.
Okay.
What you do, what our partnership is, how we fund you.
All right. So we are a community mental health center here we serve Reno, Kingman, Pratt, and Harper and Barber counties. The state requires each county to have a community mental health center that they have picked to represent them. We control access to state mental health hospitals. So if anybody's needing services in a state mental health hospital, they have to come through us. We are the gatekeepers for those hospitals. Our goal is to serve those with severe persistent mental illness and children with severe emotional disturbances. We are a safety net clinic, and we take care of the most people, what's the word I'm looking for? We take care of those that, others don't want to take care of, basically. We're that safety net. We don't deny services based on inability to pay. We take care of everyone. And so those are kind of the overviews of what we're doing here. We provide a lot of different services in our community. We do therapy, we do case management services, peer support. We have a substance use disorder program. We also work in conjunction with a lot of our community partners. So we have staff in the Reno County Jail. We have a case manager and a therapist in the jail. We just hired our co-responder, so we will have a co-responder therapist that can go on calls with police. We filled that position. We have mobile crisis services, so we try to go out in person if someone's in crisis. If not, we will do that via televideo. And we are expanding those services. That's a goal to get those more robust. We take care of children in schools, so we have we partner really closely with our schools in the area and take care of children in the classrooms, in the schools. We have therapists and case managers in our schools. We provide peer support services, so people with lived experience with mental health issues, we provide services where they can partner with one of our consumers and help them through their difficulties. So we provide that. And those are some of the main things that we provide, pretty robust services, and we are trying to transform the way we do that. We've transitioned into a new care model called a Certified Community Behavioral Health Clinic. The state adopted that new model of certification because it has been shown across the nation to provide better outcomes. So as we transition in that direction, we have obtained a provisional certification from the state. That certification, we're one of 9 in the state that have that certification now. The goal is over the next several years that all 26 CMHCs in the state will have that certification. The idea behind that is more intense crisis services and more out in the community, meeting people where they are at and not expecting them to come into our building to receive their services. One of the things that has been implemented as a result of the CCBHC is an assertive community treatment team. We call it our ACT team. They focus on individuals who are at high risk for hospitalization and law enforcement contact. That program is about a little over a year old, and we have it up and fully staffed. We're seeing some great outcomes as a result of that program. When we started in July last year, our average incarceration days for the people enrolled in that program were 138. As of December, our average incarceration days are 70. So we've cut those in half by working closely with those individuals. So those are some of the programs we're trying to initiate and implement and support the mental health of the community. With the Certified Community Health Clinic certification, it did change the way we are reimbursed for our services. So we were on a fee-for-service payment schedule. The rates have not changed since 2007. With the Certified Community Behavioral Health Clinic, we now submit a cost report, and our rate is based on the cost of our services, what it costs us to do services, and then how many visits that we provide each year. So we will rebase on that cost report in December of this year. So that helps us support those programs in the community that treat a lot of the underinsured and uninsured, and we can still provide the services. A great example of that is our Care for Crisis Center that we opened in October. That facility will never make money. We treat a very high uninsured population in that facility. So this new payment model will help us sustain that. That's kind of an overview of our services. I didn't go through the whole presentation because it's a lot of history, and if just thought I'd share that with you. I can. I don't know all the history as well as Mr. Garrett anyway. So
questions for Vicki?
I've got some, and I sent you a lot of these ahead of time,
sure
so that
did.
way, because I didn't want there to be any surprises. I'm generally looking for answers. A couple of new questions just based on what you said. What is charity care? I don't understand that. Yeah.
So charity care is when someone comes into our facility, they don't have insurance. We have what's called a sliding fee scale. Okay. So we look at their income and then reduce their fees based on their income. If there's things going on in their life where they still cannot afford the services, but they're really needing those, we look at fee reductions for that. And then write-offs as far as, people that aren't able to pay.
Okay, and then the reason we're going to people rather than them coming in is because we don't have a high success rate with people coming in, or?
When we're dealing with individuals with severe and persistent mental illness, there's a lot of social determinants of health that can impact their mental health, like housing status. A lot of individuals don't have housing that need our services. They don't have transportation. There's a lot of barriers to services. So our goal is to meet them out in the community. So if we need to provide services with them in the park, we will go to the park. We try to take those barriers out for them.
What is, so in your presentation, one of the things that you mentioned was therapeutic preschool. What is that?
Yes. So we do have a therapeutic preschool that is for children ages 3 to 5 who are having difficulties maintaining in regular preschool or daycare facilities. We partner with the Head Start program for some of our classrooms. So if they have determined that a child isn't doing well in the typical Head Start programs, then we partner with them and they bring them over to our preschool, and we do more intense therapeutic interventions with them to help regulate their behaviors and help them find tools, implement ways to integrate back into the normal school setting.
Okay, and how many people is that approximately? Do you have any idea? Or is it a significant portion, or is it something?
We've expanded to 2 classrooms. I do not know off the top of my head how many kids are in a classroom. I want to say like 10 kids to a classroom. So we have 2 non-Head Start classrooms, and I think we have 3 Head Start classrooms. Head Start classrooms have to go through a little bit more different process because they have to fail other interventions before they come to us, and I don't know the number on that.
So in your presentation, there was something about early childhood intervention program. What is that?
So we have several early childhood intervention programs. So we have the ABC program. Let me remember what that is. The Attachment and Biobehavioral Catch-Up. It's for ages 6 months to 4 years. That's for children that experience adverse effects, and we work in the home with the parents and the child to hopefully prevent them from needing our services later in life. We also do parent-child interaction therapy. So it's called PCIT, and that is where we observe parents interacting with their children, and we provide feedback real time to the parent on how to better handle the situation so that they can build their parenting skills to support their children. We also have just started an applied behavioral analysis program for autism. That is a very new program, but that is for early childhood as well.
Okay. And you'd mentioned home visits. Are these required? Because I will tell you, I get very wary of government saying, hey, we have to enter your home.
No, it's not required.
Okay.
It's a volunteer program.
Okay,
We don't force
somebody,
anybody. If somebody's interested in this program, they would sign up, and then we do home visits and work with them. We don't force anyone to
but a home visit's not required for other services?
No,
Okay.
it is not.
So social emotional learning, that's comes right out of critical theory. So what, I guess I've got some concern about that. I'd like more information on the social emotional learning aspect that was in your presentation.
So the social and emotional learning that we do is usually through our psychosocial groups. And what we have some curriculums, I can give you a list of the different curriculums we utilize, but our goal of those programs is to help individuals function in a group setting, and we're there to help support the different behaviors and help them implement their coping skills that they're learning through therapy and other modalities. That's the intent of our groups.
Okay, perfect. And then what school-based therapies are we using? That was also something that was mentioned in your presentation.
So we use all the same therapy modalities that we use in our for anyone. So it could be anything from motivational interviewing, cognitive behavioral therapy. We do play therapy. Those are just some of the evidence-based practices that we utilize, but it's just the typical therapeutic interventions that we use every day.
Okay. And then the last question, and this comes back to my mediation training back when I did that. Case management was kind of the well, let me see if I can how I can say this. People liked case management, or lawyers and mediators liked case management because it meant that they had a hold on these people for an indefinite period of time, and they were getting paid for this for an indefinite period of time. And I really didn't like that when I was going through that because it didn't. But this may be something completely different. So when we do have somebody in case management, is it indefinitely? Or is it like, do we look for ways and possibilities to get them off of this, or?
Yes, our goal with case management is to work ourselves out of a job. Our goal is to, through case management, to help individuals cope with everyday life and be able to be in the community and eventually not need our services. That's our ultimate goal. We use some different assessments to determine what kind of services someone would need. So not everybody needs case management. Some people just need med services. Some people need meds and therapy. Others need therapy and case management. Maybe we'll graduate someone from case management down to peer support, so they won't be receiving as intensive services. So we have a way that we evaluate and we look at their treatment plan and their goals and what services we need to provide to support those goals. And as they improve, we back down on those services.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and I would be interested in getting some of that curriculum and stuff. I think I'd sent you an email on that. So, but yeah, no, that's all. And the other commissioners, like I said, when I looked through this, I was expecting her to go through the whole presentation, but these were questions that I pulled out from her presentation that we got in advance. So,
well, thank you, Commissioner Weitzel, for sending her those questions.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Helps a lot. Are there other questions, Vicki? I had a couple. One of the challenges with our job is it's really hard to understand how all the different funded agencies intersect and overlap, and how do you make sure your interaction with the schools and our health department are coordinated and we don't have a bunch of overlap of services?
So I don't think that the services that we provide are provided by anyone else. If there is someone receiving therapy services in the community and not through us, we coordinate that care on those treatment team meetings, and we bring everyone to the table that's involved in the care. I would say that when it comes to physical health care, we are not as good at care coordination, but that is something that we are working towards being a lot better at, because we do know that physical health and mental health both affect each other. That is one of the big initiatives of the CCBHC, is coordinated care across not just physical health care, but housing, job placement, all of those things that affect mental health. So we have really good partnerships with law enforcement and community corrections. We work with the health department on different initiatives as well. Carla actually sits on our board, so she is part of our board that you appointed her to. So we try really hard not to duplicate any services, because that's not good for anyone.
Like a school, they have like 504 plans, and lots of school children, may or may not need, depending on what their parents think, need some sort of therapy, like how, like you provide, how does that intersect? Like, how do you know, like, how to help school children that may need, like?
So we, when we help children in the school, we partner with the school. The teachers know what we're there for, the school principals. We are there to enhance the services that they're providing and support them, not to be in conflict with any of that.
And just so I'm clear, you're a nonprofit funded by the government, is that right?
We're a nonprofit, yes. We receive some state funding and some federal funding, as well as county funding, and then we bill insurance. Okay. So we receive funding from insurance companies.
And I'm sure it was in there, but I didn't look. Like, what's our percentage of funding that we provide you every year?
I didn't have that in there, and I don't know what that percentage of our gross funding.
Or like, what's the budget for them every year?
280?
Yes, I was going to say 240.
240, maybe.
And then my last question is, it seems like sometimes individuals looking for help with their mental health are having trouble kind of post-COVID, even finding like cash pay options. Do you have, like, if somebody can afford to pay on their own, can they go to your facility and just pay cash?
Yes, we have a lot of individuals that pay out of pocket, yes.
So you provide mental health services to anyone?
Yes, anyone that walks in the doors.
Okay.
I do have, building off Commissioner Friesen, talking about going into the schools and partnering with the teachers and other staff there to help the children. Again, I don't know that I got a clear answer by his question. Are the parents are apprised of that going on?
Oh, yes, we don't do any of that without permission. We have to have treatment plan meetings that include the parent and the consumer, and everybody has to be on board for the plan of care.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I understand correctly, because we dealt with this when I was on the school board. So the school board pays a portion of the salary for your staff that are...
No.
No? I thought we had approved that.
No.
But, and children will come up and say, hey, I'm having a problem with my boyfriend, or like they will schedule time without talking to their parents, but before it goes forward and there's any sort of...
They will schedule talk to the counselor at the school. We're not going to work with them until we get parental permission.
Okay, all right, that's good.
It's a little different.
I've got one question. We are in the process, the United Way is taking this over with regards to early child care and early child care education. And in that process, there may be several different child care facilities. I don't know where it's going to end up at. Denise probably knows more about the potential on this, but in the early visiting, that there might be several, say half a dozen early childhood care, similar to what Emmanuel Lutheran was doing. And one of the ways to make that really work is for the schools to give up their early education child care and contract with the child care centers, education centers. Mm-hmm. In that case, how would you work the same way with individual child care centers if there's a need?
Yes. So that's what we're there for, is for those children that can't function within the normal child care settings or within the normal preschools. We're there as a different alternative to help them when they're, if they're in crisis a lot in the child care center, then we're a good alternative because we can help them through those and help them get coping skills.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Last call. Thank you, Vicki.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Item 10C is the courthouse interior renovations. It looks like Ward Davis is here and Randy prepared to update the commission. You want to start?
Yeah, I'll start it. We also have Harlan Depew, who's overseeing the project, and Brad from GLMV as the architect is here to answer other questions.
And you might start with what your vision of what you want us to do today is.
Okay.
Or like you need direction, or you're making a decision.
Okay, so in front of you today is information about the bid that went out October, I think 11th is when the county commission approved going out to bid on the courthouse renovation, the interior renovations. What this project intends is on the 5th floor to take move attorneys on the 4th floor for the district attorney, move them to the 5th floor, and take what was the original jail space of the courthouse that has been for years used as storage, the offices, conference room, and still leave some storage in that area, which I believe it's for the second egress exit, there needs to be a staircase on that side. So then a staircase between the 5th and 4th floor would be constructed with this project. What this does is it gives a better environment for the district attorney. I think the previous county commission had toured their area and was very, I guess, there was displeasure of the environment that the attorneys are having to work in that, provide safety for Reno County. And then the efficient use of space for them to have, they don't really have a conference room. I think Tom has to maybe use someone's office, almost kick them out in a way to have a small meeting area. So that's kind of high level of what the 5th floor is. The 4th floor, the space that I think 2 or 3 attorneys are in that will be moved to the 5th floor. Kansas Legal Services, which is on the 2nd floor right now, will move up to the 4th floor, which opens up office or conference room space for other people in the courthouse to use on that 2nd floor. The 3rd floor there's going to be a room that's going to be split, I think jury and witness room. That was something the judges had requested. I think that's a small piece of this project. The 2nd floor and mezzanine we had talked about because we have office space needs in the courthouse. IT, information technology right now, they are in a very crowded space. They've expanded the size of IT over the past few years. They have one person that's completely in a different area of the courthouse in a very small office right now. So we were looking at moving them to the 2nd floor where Kansas Legal Services is for one area, and then on the mezzanine, if we build a walkway that will connect the 2 sides, then we can have cubicles, not really enclosed offices, but more of a cubicle type space with the outlets for IT staff to be up there. The 1st floor, the vision there was right now we don't have, we have limited office space, but with the commission moving to the veterans room, that opens up what could be a conference room, or we could split it up and make a couple offices. That's what the proposal is. Make a couple offices and move the county counselor and his legal assistant over to the same side as administration, so we would be closer and have easier access. Take what used to be the Reno conference room, turn it back into a conference room. The office that's just off of that conference room, which is where Patrick is right now, that would become the spot for county commissioners. So Commissioner Hurst has an office space over at the courthouse out in the open area. We would move his office or office for more commissioners to that office and then free up the space on the main level. And that's not really part of the construction, but it would then open up that area, maybe move the law library into a different space. We haven't figured where that would go, but that's kind of the high level of what this project was. It went out to bid. Ward Davis, who is here, had bid on the project, and I don't have it in front of me, but I believe his bid was just over $2 million. The estimate that GLMV gave us was, I think, 1.2 million. So it was quite a bit higher. At that point, Harlan and myself met, and then we met with Ward Davis and talked with Brad. Okay, what do we need to do to get this more feasible for the county commission? Not knowing if you would want to spend $2 million on this project. So we asked Ward Davis to kind of break down his bid based on floors, or work area. And so that is what's in the packet. If the county commission wants to only do portions of this, you have in front of you the different work areas and what they cost. If there's a certain amount you are willing to spend or not willing to spend, that's kind of getting a little more direction today. That's the intent. Ask questions for Brad, Harlan, Ward, or myself about the project, and then we can come back with a proposal for consideration to be approved at a future meeting, maybe in February. The budget, we budgeted $1 million in the general fund in 2022. We also had, I think, close to $1 million in 2021 when we originally started this project discussion. And there's, I think, $900,000 in 2023 for for the courthouse renovations. So when you put them, we have put some of that money in reserves from the past couple years. So there's adequate money for the $2 million without causing more, I guess, problems, or it wouldn't increase taxes. It's in reserves right now. But that would take away from other county needs also if we use $2 million versus 1.2. So that's kind of what I wanted you guys to be aware of, and then have a discussion and get thoughts on the courthouse renovation from you guys. And then I would say Brad, Harlan, Ward, if you have anything to add, feel free. Or if there's questions. Yeah.
Questions from the commission?
Well, are they going to present something here? Would we question them or do it now? Well, I do have a couple of questions.
They don't really have a presentation. They're here for questions.
Okay, I do have a couple of questions. One, was this the only proposal that we had? Because I wasn't here on that being new. Did we have any other bids out, or was that the only person? I don't know what was the only response that we had
There
to
were
the bid process.
4 people that showed initial interest. I believe it was four. Oh, Brad. Yeah, sure.
We advertised for a competitive bid, and we were answering questions for 4 different contractors that showed interest. And then when it came to bid day, we received only one bid.
Well, and I assume the elevated cost, materials are through the roof, so I understand that's going to drive some of the costs up as well, but.
Yeah, Ward Davis Builders. Yeah, I mean, they've done a good job of, figuring out cost and stuff on that. Theirs is cost history, ours is kind of current cost on that. So it's, it's 2 different ways to figure it and stuff. So they don't know how to figure it. I'm not real sure how they figure it.
Yeah. As far as the costing goes, the project started about 2 years ago, and we provided initial estimates at that time, and then there have been cost increases due to inflation, but there are also scope increases that we added. We had not anticipated the new mechanical systems for the 5th floor to heat and cool that, and so that was a significant part of it. There were some added, the third floor courtroom, jury room, the expansion, that was another $50,000, and then there was the dumbwaiter. There was probably $50,000 or $60,000 for that, and then so.
Where did that come from? The staff request, or
a dumbwaiter? It was talked about for the storage to move stuff from the 4th or other floors up to the 5th floor.
I Yeah, I had that question. If there's going to be a way to do it, you wouldn't want to carry that upstairs.
Right. It's probably not completely necessary. That would be something that.
You have elevators.
And then there were some surprises as well. One of the bigger surprise was the cost of the egress stairs out of the 5th floor. We had planned an egress stairs out of there because now that we have occupancy of people, we have to add a second exit. And so the stairs that we put in there, we anticipated just using the existing narrow stairs. Well, that turned into much larger. And so that was a surprise that we did not anticipate in our cost.
So what you're saying is, in putting in what's essentially a fire escape rather than was it intended to be a stairway to be used on that portion of the building up and down as a regular stairway, or is it required because it's a fire escape for that corner of the building?
Because it was storage and we're turning it into an occupied space, that occupied space would require a second means of egress out of it. So we took the existing stairs that was there and we widened it and we brought it down to the 3rd floor in lieu of adding a stairs to the outside of the building. But we needed to upgrade the egress out of that space. So
now this is on the north in that
there was
part that we toured, that storage space.
There's a small stairs from the 3rd floor to the 4th floor, but we needed to connect to the 5th floor. So we opened up the 5th floor so that we could get egress and egress stairs out of the 5th floor, out of the northeast corner of the building.
Is a large part of that cost a result of, I'm not, it looks like a flat concrete floors and ceilings, depending on which side you're looking at. And to get the strength, they have the, I'll call it a beam.
Yeah.
Probably not what you'd call it.
No, that's,
But is part of this widening that we're going to have to knock out one of those beams, and then all this weight's got to be transferred somewhere?
we got it. Yeah, that's correct.
Can we do this? Can we have a staircase going down that fits in between and one coming up beside it in the next slot and not compromise the strength? And therefore not having to go down and build all this weight carrying ability somewhere else?
It's a very good question. We did explore several different ideas. We explored that the spacing between those beams is pretty narrow, but we did explore options like that. We explored turning the direction of the stairs so that it would orient east to west as opposed to a U-shaped stairs, north and south. We explored steel versus concrete. We explored several different options, and this, with our structural engineer, appeared to be the least, with the least amount of demolition and wherewithal to make it happen.
Now, this is going to sound way out there, and I know it. But in talking with some people, if this is for fire escape only, and correct me, are we wanting full access stairs, or is the cost here, or is it required for fire escape?
The stair is required for egress out of that space. Unfortunately, what we are providing is an improvement of what would be there, but it's not fully compliant because it doesn't take you all the way down to the 1st floor. It only takes you down to the 3rd floor. To make it fully compliant, it would be even more.
Well, is what you're asking, is this for emergency use only?
Yes.
And that, well, it is. It's a code requirement that, for the sake of the occupants, that they are required to have two means of egress And this stairs is that second means of egress.
Okay, if we're just doing it for fire escape purposes, they've got to have egress. Some new buildings are actually using slipper slides for fire escape. Would that be able to go in this narrower deal and cut a bunch? And how many dollars would it save if we weren't building this whole structure? Destroying what we're doing is destroying a portion of the weight-bearing area, and then we got to reconstruct it some way. If you could go between those bars, like I said, then if they're using this in new buildings, is there any reason you couldn't use that as your egress to get you to the next floor where you have egress?
Maybe if I could offer a little insight to some of those beams, sometimes your slab is part of the structure as well too.
Okay.
On that. So just because you're not cutting the beam, you can decrease the ability of that beam to support load and stuff. So just by leaving the beam and taking the slab, an engineer may not feel comfortable that would be adequate and stuff. And I don't know, those beams are relatively close. I'm not sure that we would have enough space between those to do. I know what you're saying and stuff. And
I toured it once, and it just
Yeah,
struck me when I read this that that's probably part of this cost, and I was just wanting to ask you about it. If
a quick run through on that, I mean, something like that, we basically have to support it as if we were pouring a new concrete. So we basically have to build a scaffold so it can support, all of that concrete. Then we cut it, then we, put it in small pieces, and this is all up on the 5th floors, and all that. Those small pieces have to come from the 5th floor all the way down to the ground. On that, then we can go through. The engineer's got the steel, designed and stuff, and all that. And it's a very utilitarian stair. I think we have a little carpet on the landing, but all the treads are very concrete. And we may have some paint on the
metal
bottom.
pan stairs and
Yeah,
concrete.
so it's very rudimentary, very simple. I don't know what the use of the building is, but if a stairway's there, people are going to use it and stuff. If you're just going down to the 4th floor, you're not going to clear over the elevator and down. So I would expect, it'll get used on a day-to-day basis for.
Thank you.
I think what Randy, are you looking for us to kind of tell you what we have an appetite for and what we don't? And
Direction, yeah, because if you guys are fine with the bid, the full bid, and everything that's in there, we can bring back a contract and you can accept the bid. If you, out of the 2.1 million, if you only want to spend 1.5, then we be working with Ward Davis and Brad of what areas do we need to make cuts to, and then that would be where we would ask you, is the 5th floor the most important part of this project? Does the walkway from the 2nd floor to the mezzanine, is that, do you guys have the appetite to do that and change? Because it gives us access and use to the mezzanine, but it's also going to change the look of the inside of the courthouse.
maybe what we should do is try to say what we're all in agreement on and what nobody wants to do, and clear that stuff out of the way. So does everyone here agree we need to remodel the 5th floor DA offices?
Yes. Well, I do, and we're somewhat required to provide those spaces, aren't we? Mm-hmm. That and as well as the court.
I don't know, $1.5 million to, I mean, what was in his report and then what was in here seemed to say that it was for convenience that everything get moved to the 5th floor. And I don't know, spending $1.5 million on convenience seems like a lot to me. So I mean, what is the deal with them being on the 4th and 5th floor, and why is it necessary for them to be all on the same floor? I guess is.
Well, it's kind of, I mean, if you have attorneys working on same cases and you have them separated, I mean, it's kind of like putting them at the other end of the building. That causes issues. The 5th floor renovations, this also does take care of doing a little bit of refurnishing and and redoing maybe some of the carpet, some areas of the current DA staff. But it's really giving them, I think the big project is to give them a more professional setting to do the work they do. And since we're doing that, to put them all on the same floor.
But you move some from the 4th to the 5th. What happens to the space on the 4th?
We'd move Kansas Legal Services, who deals with court on 3rd and 4th floor, and the people more, move them off the 2nd floor.
Okay, so what happens to the 2nd floor?
That's, with this plan, we would probably move IT, a part of IT, have an office and a conference room there. And
Does that require the mezzanine space to do
that doesn't, but if we don't move all of IT to the mezzanine, then we probably just, what we would do, what I would propose is look at the plans on that, have a conference room and an office there that would be maybe open to other needs for other people. Just yesterday in the commission room, there was, Hutchinson Police Department officers looking for a space to meet with people and to have a meeting, and we didn't have any space for them. They had to go around asking, are you using this space? Are you using this space? So we have a lot of that. There's attorneys. I know when I met with the local bar, they said one of the needs they have is conference space or an office to meet with their clients. So that's what I would use that for if we're not doing the walkway.
So you move IT from the basement, what goes in the basement?
That would probably, the sheriff. The sheriff's office has people over in the law enforcement center, the drug unit. In talking with Sheriff Campbell, he would probably want to move them over.
Does that help? I think you were looking for who's getting more space.
Well, that was all pretty well laid out in the plan. So the question is, it just seems like, well, hey, if we're doing this for convenience, $1.5 million seems like a lot for convenience. Now, with that new stairwell, would that help as far as them getting up and down and talking to each other, or I don't have a view of the space in my mind, so.
That one, that doesn't really change anything for the staff that's on the 4th floor to the 5th floor. I think their offices maybe are on the other side of the building, so they would go straight up on the other stairway.
So, go ahead, Commissioner Hurst.
The DA's office is extremely crowded. They don't have space in there for store anything, to meet with people, to really show professionalism. Part of that is just updating. But the 5th floor needs to be updated, and we need to use that space over there so that they can have, if we need another attorney, there's no space. I don't know when we're going to need one, but we could need one. But just to handle the people that are there now, they're so crowded, and some of them have to share space, share a small office. And so that part is really critical. Now, I was a little concerned with this. Didn't you mention that you hadn't figured HVAC for up there, 5th floor?
We had figured using existing systems, and we had not also had not anticipated having to provide a new electrical service to that floor. We knew that there was electrical there, but what we were doing was not part of our original.
I guess I'm a little disappointed in that. From the standpoint of not being thorough. And I appreciate what you've done, but
And maybe I misspoke. I can go back and look to see if that was part of our original, but I'd have to go back and compare it. I don't have those notes with me.
So
I would look at if you want some ideas, Chairman, I would definitely take out the dumbwaiter. I would look at the 3rd floor witness room and 4th floor legal flooring right now. And I specify that with the fact that I need to look at the plans a little more and talk with both the architect and builder on those reasons why I would look at those.
So, does anybody have a problem taking up dumbwaiter? I don't think there's any issue there. And while we were talking, Commissioner White, all the new commissioners, I would highly recommend you contact the DA and get a tour of his office and the sheriff's. The sheriff's space is very crowded too, so just take a look at that.
If I can speak, we took that tour after the initial orientations that we did through some of those and seen the use of how these spaces are going to be used. And my understanding of that was that they could demand we build those spaces for their expansion, and they wanted to work with us, the DA did. They do need that expansion for that particular project, which I think is a necessary thing. And am I correct in saying in this jury room / attorney room that that's a state requirement for us to do that as well, to provide that for them, or is it just something of convenience on that as well?
I don't know, state requirement, I'll turn
Yeah,
to the attorney.
That's kind of what they alluded to throughout the tour. I just wanted to know if you could clarify that.
Is there a statute that says we have a specific set of things that we have to provide every courthouse? Not necessarily. The law, the functionality of this government is, you guys control the budget, but you have to provide adequate and necessary space for the district attorney to do their job. So everyone's working together well to avoid a showdown about it. But I mean, I think all the commissioners I've talked to in the past that have reviewed that space have been sympathetic to the district attorney. So.
And the same would be for the district court. We have to provide them adequate space also. And that's,
I agree.
This was
Those
their
are two priorities I think ought to be done. Yeah.
Something on that tour, there were some water issues. And at the time, they were, rainwater is what I'm talking about. It's my understanding that we've had some good rain since then. Is that issue, has that been taken care of?
There hasn't been any flooding. Talking with Harlan,
good.
During those hard rains, it hasn't got into
That's good because at the time we took our tours, they were still talking like they had a problem. And Mr. Hurst had pointed out in a meeting that he thought they should have been taken care of. And now that God's blessed us with some rains here in Kansas, they're telling me that those issues are taken care of. So I'd feel a whole lot better about spending money under a dry roof than a wet space. So
The DA he communicates pretty well, and you would have probably heard.
Good,
now.
good. That's just...
Just to kind of keep things moving, it sounds like I think a majority of us, at least anyways, agree on the DA offices. Commissioner Hurst had recommended maybe taking another look at the flooring items on the. I might suggest we consider axing the walkway on the second floor. It's a cantilever. I just don't know that, like, if you look at the mezzanine space to the north there, I don't know if you're ever going to make that into great office space. It's just very open. You can't put walls in there because of the historical nature, right? You can partition it.
Meeting air, just there's reasons
maybe we could spend a minimal amount of money to just make it useful for meeting space, just open meeting space, and not put. So that would be, if we did that, that would be $291,000. It may potentially reduce other costs if we're not kind of creating that into new space. What's the commission's thought on maybe not doing that? I just think you could get a lot better square footage space for that amount of money somewhere else.
And we are working on a needs assessment right now with a different architect company out of Wichita that's looking at other needs in the health department, emergency management, human resources administration is part of that, register of deeds is part of that. Just so there is a different study for other needs, space needs, but not for the district attorney or the courts.
I'm kind of following in line with your thinking on this. and the reason I am, and the builders out there and other people, sometimes in old buildings, part of that building space is just obsolescent as time goes on. Much as I'd like to utilize, and we've been trying to figure out how to utilize all of that first floor, that empty mezzanine space, I'm trying to decide whether it's practical or not. And that's where I'm having trouble. We can use it for something else maybe, but.
Commissioner Bogner?
We've got, again, you guys have probably figured out that's the best way to cross that space with this cantilever type structure, or would there be a structure that would be less expensive that would still do the job? Or and when you're doing something like this too, and making big changes, cheaper isn't necessarily the best idea sometimes.
And we did explore different ideas, but all of the ideas would had to be approved by the historic preservation people in Topeka. And so just to construct a free span bridge across there, we didn't feel like it would fly. So we wanted to do something that was aesthetically pleasing to the room, and also.
I think it's a bit of a bridge to nowhere, for lack of better words. Here's a suggestion to get things moving. So I think we're generally, at least a majority, in agreement on 5th floor, and that kind of impacts 4th floor. Questions on flooring, maybe remove 2nd floor cantilever, which is $260,000. I think Commissioner Bogner's points on relooking at the egress and whether it could be more dedicated to emergency use and whether that changes things. That's a lot of direction. What we could do is we could ask a couple commissioners to kind of committee this a little bit. If you guys want to do that and allow a couple to get a little more into the weeds and then come back to us. Randy, do you have any issue with that?
Probably be easier just because you guys are a new group. It'd probably be easier for you just to let Harlan and myself and maybe the chair or one commissioner, I wouldn't say two, kind of meet with them and just kind of have a general discussion of what areas we might cut and what to bring back for acceptance.
There's one thing I didn't see, maybe it's already there, but is there sprinkler systems in that old jail system? Is that included in the bid?
No, that's not.
Well, there you go.
Well, you get into some of that. That's why you get that egress. You get the trade-off of the egress versus the fire sprinkler. So by not putting sprinklers in there.
So you don't have to put
I'm getting to be architect. I'm sorry.
If the sprinklers would have been required, we would have had them in there. They're not required.
So they're not required.
Right.
Okay.
But would there be that trade-off that he's talking about? Because I'm guessing a sprinkler system.
We can look.
Is there anything in this building that's sprinkled already?
The basement is.
Okay.
We can look to see if there would be a trade-off to bring a sprinkler system up there, trading that off. I don't know the answer to it. We'd have to work with Ward Davis to see what the numbers would be.
I'd like to suggest we allow Commissioner Hurst to kind of, take the lead on the off hours here with Randy. I mean, Commissioner Bogner, you have a lot of ideas too. I was kind of hoping you two could get together and knock out some of these questions. Certainly the rest of the commission can ask questions, and maybe we could do some more behind the scenes and cut this down and have another meeting on it in a couple weeks or something.
At that meeting, would you want then that recommendation along with a possible contract ready to go?
You need to check with the commissioners, because it seems like we all have a lot of opinions on this yet. So I don't, unless you feel really good, I don't know if we're going to be ready in 2 weeks, unless.
Well, and I've got a much more general question. So, the need for more office space. I know we moved a lot of stuff over to the annex a while back, to free up some office space. So, is the government just growing that much, or like, do we have that many new people, or like, where does this sudden need for more office space come from, or has it just been always there? And
I think it's always been there, a need for space. I think Reno County of the past has kind of fixed what was needed at that moment and not looked long range. So some of the office needs may be 5 to 10 years from now. We may not be growing right now, but as the community grows, as there's more services, there may be need for more staff. So we want to be prepared instead of just assuming we're never going to grow and wait till it happens.
I would put it a little differently. There's a couple very crowded spaces today in the courthouse that need to be reorganized, and it's just time. Like, the space is old, and so those two priorities together require us to do something in the courthouse. So that's one. I mean, I think you keyed in on Mr. Partington's point of like, hey, we're going to do a space study across the county, and we do have some very spacious facilities in South Hutch that could, accommodate some moves from the health department and so forth. And so I think obviously the jury's still out on whether we need more space or not, but I'm hopeful we don't need much more than this reorganization.
There may be one other thing coming down in who knows when, but the state may say that you need 2 more judges. And so then we'll have another situation on our hands. And I'd like to ask Ward, what kind of time frame are we looking here to work with you on this?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, depending on which packages, but I mean, I would ask for in the neighborhood of 12 months. Can we do it 9 perhaps? I'd like a few months to just kind of get stuff playing, get those metals and get stuff bought. So it's kind of a little complicated just to start, next month or something. So we would ask a few, and, other projects I've got, I need to get those finished. It doesn't do me good to start a project till we can really hit it hard, so.
And when we look at the roof, does it have the capabilities of handling those 5 units weight-wise now?
I'm sure we've looked at that.
You have looked at it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is the commission okay with the approach of delegating Commissioner Hurst and potentially Bogner to kind of get some of the discussions out of the way in the next few weeks? Again, all commissioners are welcome to ask more questions and get more detail, but would that be an okay approach?
I'd be okay with it.
I think let's just do that. Does this give you some direction?
It helps, yeah.
Does any commissioner have any other particular points you want to lay now?
I think our communication will have to be with Mr. Davis and the architect as well as Randy. Don't you think, Don? At some point in time, each individual and etc.
Okay. Well, I would, if it's, depending on how things land, Randy, I would hope we could kind of touch base again, at least by the 14th.
Do you remember when the space utilization was going to be coming in, time-wise?
I have the initial meeting with the architects this week,
Okay.
and it's getting close.
Okay. It'd be nice to halfway coordinate those two if we could.
And if we can at least maybe phases, get the DA stuff going, even if we don't decide on everything else.
Yeah.
I know they've been patiently waiting for 2 years?
We've been talking about this for about 2 years.
Okay. Big item here. Appreciate the commission's work on this and navigating through it. There's a lot of decisions to be made, but thank you. That gets you what you need, Randy?
Yes, okay.
Thank you. Item 10D is the ARPA subrecipient agreement with SCED for $500,000. Basically, E and F, I assume, are generally the same agreement.
Yeah, scope of work is what is different on there. I think all three have the beginning date, I believe September 27th is when they could have started spending money and get reimbursed, because that's when the county commission passed the resolution allocating the fund to those entities. So that's in all three of the contracts.
How do you want to do this, Randy? I know we got agreements fairly late to review some of them. I think you're seeking approval. I think the three commissioners here were not involved in these decisions. So they may want at least a briefing on the scope for each.
And I had invited, and I think we have each entity is here. There's people from, Mark from SCED's here, Clint's Interfaith, and Denise for United Way Childcare. So all three of them, if maybe you wanted, the contracts are pretty similar. The part that the county commission would want to look at is probably the scope of work. And if maybe each of you could briefly explain your scopes of work, that would probably, I think, would that help, commissioners?
And why don't we just maybe get one thing out of the way? Was there anything in the agreement language? Maybe we do that last. Let's just, you're right. Is it okay if we hear from each recipient? If you could keep it to 5 minutes or less, the commission may have many questions for you. But summarize what your intention is with this funding. Randy, maybe briefly, what is this funding? Where did it come from?
Okay, the ARPA money, this comes from the U.S. Treasury. We got a little over $12 million. There are certain categories the county's supposed to spend the money in. We have to meet federal guidelines for all expenditures. The first $10 million of this $12 million is in revenue loss. So it can be spent theoretically on anything that county or governments are government services we already provide for, which we can do that with housing, we can do that with child care, and all the other items that are on the list of allocations. Let me see if I have the list just to show. So out of that $12,042,000, the county commission had adopted a resolution that's attached that gave the $4.5 million for child care. That's the program, the project, and United Way oversees that with K-Ready. And then Interfaith Housing received $4 million, and that's for housing, and they were going to work with some unincorporated areas, possibly in all the cities in Reno County, to kind of find out what the needs for rehab, new housing, whatever the needs were of those respective communities. That's part of their scope of work that Clint could get into more detail. And then SCED, similar thing, make some houses more available for general use, and kind of continue to create a program for additional housing. And then the Chamber of Commerce received 1.2 for an industrial development park, and then the list of other allocations, entities that are receiving money. The agreements today are for SCED, Interfaith, and United Way. Those are the larger of the pots of money separate from the chamber. So we thought, because they have to get the money spent by the end of 2026 and have allocated that money or identified exactly what it's going to be spent by the end of 2024, we're already at the beginning of 2023, so we needed to get moving on that so they could start their work.
We really need to get this done so they can get to work.
And I know the three entities here have all been working at various stages to be prepared.
One of the things I saw, maybe you can help me out a little bit, but I saw one thing, if by chance, and I really like that part in there, and Patrick, maybe you can help me out a little on this, but I saw that if by chance that one of our contract people with ARPA doesn't quite spend all the money, then it comes back to us because we're allocated so many dollars for assistance. The county is, when we decided not to keep that for ourselves, we put it all out. But in the event some of it isn't spent, why, it comes back to the county to use in our qualified ways. Correct, Patrick?
Yeah, and I think I'd even, just to kind of, especially with new commissioners, reframe this too. These documents are to explain how this is going to work. But what we're not doing today is cutting checks to these entities and saying, here you go. How this works is, it's kind of like a budget process and a, not obligation, what do we call it? We've allocated these funds and we've earmarked them for these projects. Encumbered them, is what I was thinking. These are kind of like earmarked for these, but they are sub-recipients, and so they're going to be getting reimbursements as these projects work. They're going to follow, these documents describe how the projects are working and what the money can be used for. And they tell us, hey, we spent this money the way we were supposed to, and we say, good job, here's your money back. Here's your reimbursement. If something goes wrong or if something doesn't work out as intended and they're not spending those funds, there's review periods throughout the process, and there's kind of some deadlines as we get closer to the end to do that reallocation and say, hey, you thought you were going to do this project, but it's not working, so we're going to reallocate it. But at the same time, these entities have all been kind of, ever since September when they got approval, they've been getting ready and getting things going and spending their time, on the assumption and on the understanding that they're going to get to do these programs. So we're kind of just putting the final piece hopefully in place when these get approved, and then they can implement them and we can reimburse them for doing it and keep track of it as we go. So, they are wordier documents, since I've got the floor for a second. Because this is federal funds, there are some unusual things that we don't usually put in agreements, like, I don't know, just some unique things that we have to put in here because it's federal money that we don't want to accidentally violate some federal statute that we're not usually concerned about. So that's one of the reasons why there's a lot of boilerplate in these. But I would agree that the scope of work, for you guys, for the commissioners to really get a review and understanding of what the scope of work of each of these projects is, so you can answer questions your constituents might have, is probably the most important thing.
And then, if the current commission has questions or maybe concerns about the way the previous commission doled out the money, it seemed to me that the contract said that we could change the allocation in the future. Is that correct, or is that, are there legal consequences to that, or?
I think there could be legal consequences because when we passed the resolution in September, we did that with understanding that these entities were relying on that as a kind of we told them we were doing it, and it's binding. I think the money only comes back if the programs don't work or are not being administered and the funds aren't being spent as intended, is my take on it. It was a different, the previous commissioners, that group had done months worth of work to kind of get close to the finish line, and I think it took longer than anyone expected when they started it to get there. And so it was one of those situations in the summer where it's like, if we punt this to the new commissioners completely, that would have consequences and make it hard to spend all the money in time. So they just had to kind of do their best and take that initiative. Yeah.
Sedgwick County started spending their money 6 months ago, at least.
Yeah, I think Reno is one of the last ones to fully do a plan because they took their time and really looked at it.
Okay. Real briefly, I'd like to hear from all three recipients. Sked's first on the list. Sked.
Good morning. My name is Mark Hallam with Sked. Let me give you a real brief background of Sked. We've been around 50 years. We were started by the EDA, and I believe added weatherization services 40 years ago? 30. So what Sked does from the weatherization scope is, for almost half the state, we do low-income weatherization projects, which involves construction. And because of that expertise, we started a program called the Housing Resurgence Program. And the idea for the Housing Resurgence Program is a little different than we see with a lot of housing programs. You guys have a great organization with Interfaith and others that do a really good job with low-income housing. But what we found, as we talk about folks with economic development, is housing is a huge issue. And part of that housing is workforce housing. So the teachers, the firefighters, the new plant manager you're trying to attract, right, through recruiting new companies in the area. So our program is essentially this. We are looking for houses with a case of the uglies. They can be, as long as they're structurally sound, they guys come to a point of no return on any house, right? But if they're structurally sound or if they just need cosmetic upgrades, what we're going to do is we're going to purchase those. We're going to go in and we're going to make them energy efficient, like we do any of our other weatherization projects. So we'll do insulation, we'll do whatever it needs, electrical, plumbing, ground up. Then we're going to turn around and make them cosmetically attractive, and then we're going to sell them. And we're going to sell them at market rate. We are going to give a $5,000 down payment assistance that people can use for that. And then we're going to sell those, and we're going to sell them, put the money back in the program, and keep rolling this program out. So we're going to start out with 5 houses. Based on the timing, we're contractually obligated to do 5,000, but we're also contractually obligated to continue this program. So one thing that makes this program maybe a little different than some others are looking at is this is going to be a revolving program. We are committed to Reno County, and we're committed to do this for the long term. So what we would like to do is to, over the course of time, take the older housing stock that you have, bring it to where a family would move into it, and it'd be something they would want to live in for a number of years. And then that, along with the new housing developments, will help you guys have a better housing stock to attract employers, attract new families to the area. Think of a modified version of Flip Your House or any of those other things. But one of the things we are going to do again is make sure these things are energy efficient, and that is really a key part of this. Is something that we're going to do that somebody else buying a house might not necessarily do. We're going to make sure that I call it kind of bulletproofing a house. We want to be in a position where somebody should be basically maintenance free for 20 years. So the key part of this is we're going to work with local realtors and everyone else to find houses that are in need of a fair amount of repair and go in and update those and again take a bad house and make it a good house, and then create a revolving program where this continues to be, these funds should be cycled through over and over again. And that's the program in a nutshell.
Questions?
Are you a for-profit entity or?
We are a nonprofit. 513C.
You will sell all of these houses. You won't retain any property ownership.
No, we're not planning to become, we're not going to get in the rental business.
Good.
We're really just trying to get workforce housing. That's all we're trying to do with this.
And there's not a specific market that can only buy your house, so they would be open to anybody?
There's no income restrictions on this.
And you are planning on, if I understand right, getting out into the smaller communities?
So this is the countywide program. Yes, this is a countywide program. So if we've got some folks, and I grew up going to Kansas Bible Camp, but I'm not real familiar with all areas of Reno County. But if we've got some place in Nickerson or any of the other towns that can help us find housing, that's what we're looking to do. The key part of this program is it has to be, we want to be good stewards of these funds. So we have to find houses where we put money into it, we can get it back out, right? We don't want to lose money on these houses. So we've got to find good properties to remodel. But yeah, anywhere in the county that there's a market and there was a need, we are willing to go there. And we've got that. The thing that makes us unique is we do have that expertise. We've got folks with 10 to 20 years of construction experience. The other thing that because we are involved with weatherization, which is a government program, we're very aware of the OMB requirements. So all the reporting, we're going to understand that and help them do that. So,
have you found yourself in competition with local people who are doing the same things for profit?
Oh, absolutely. finding houses right now is extremely difficult, and that's the challenge. And so, but I do think Julia's talked to some folks. I do think that we've gone to several of the Housing Commission meetings. I think that we have folks that want to work with us, because what we're doing, when we take an old house that is needing repair and we fix it up and turn it into a homeownership situation instead of a rental, I think there's some value to that for a community standpoint. So, but absolutely, anybody puts a house for sale, there's just lots of people out there. One good thing about this, we do have some seed money, so we'll buy the house, right, and then we'll ask for reimbursement, and then we'll do repairs, we'll ask for reimbursement. So we will, in quote, become a cash buyer, which makes us like a lot of the other quote investors in town. So it gives us a stronger negotiating position. But yeah, absolutely, there's the biggest problem with this program for us is going to be finding the housing stock, and I'm going to have to work very hard at trying to do that.
Mark, for the behalf of those who just new on the commission, if you need any more information, go up and talk to Julia. How about that, Julia?
Yes, Julia's very good.
Up on 30th Street, okay? Yeah. Skid office on 30th.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Interface housing.
Morning, Commissioners.
Congratulations on your new position.
Thank you, sir. Clint Nelson, President and CEO of Interfaith Housing and Community Services. We are a faith-based, not-for-profit that has 32 years of history with all variety of housing services. Currently, our core programs, we have our homeowner repair and rehab program, which has been a very underfunded high mission program since our inception, and that is our program that we seek to go out and perform repairs for elderly, disabled, kind of underserved populations that need housing improvements. We also have a statewide homebuyer program that includes financial education and a down payment assistance, and then we have an expanding affordable rental program. And within the last 4 years, we've actually added over 60 units of affordable senior housing in this community. And in the same time frame, we've been connected to over $14 million of housing production. We were approached early last year, around February, by the commission at that time to strategize a county-wide housing plan utilizing the ARPA funding. And we chose to model off of a program that we started in Rice County a few years ago called Hearts for Homes. They had some startup money from a sheltered habitat, didn't necessarily have the experience or the know-how to rally volunteers and identify projects, and we were able to work with them over the last 3 years to develop a program that is now self-sufficient and fully operational. They have their own network of there in Rice County to perform the work. We're thankful for this opportunity, feel blessed, and feel like we absolutely have the capacity to carry this out. If you look through our plan, we've staying within the residential housing parameters. We've kept the specifics broad and intentionally so that we can work with the smaller rural communities in the county to identify what their priorities are. We typically run over 10,000 hours a year of skilled volunteer labor. We have great relationships with our contractors. Our project coordinator is a licensed Class A general contractor, and that's generally the gist. You can see the breakdown of our budget. We have approximately $1.9 million earmarked for small communities outside of the Hutchinson city limits. We have a healthy rural contingency line of $675,000, and then we have approximately $1.8 million earmarked for work here in Hutchinson. And then we have included 7% indirect for overhead and soft costs. We're ready to go. As Randy and Patrick can attest to, we've been working with a bit of a moving target over the last year or so as the federal guidelines come out, we kind of shift. We at one point were working under the impression that we would just have 2 years to actually expense these funds. So you can see we kind of front loaded our budget there in 23 and 24 with the hope that we can, in the intent to come back to you as the commissioners mid 24 and show that we are spending this money at the pace that's required. And we have no doubt that we'll be able to accomplish that. Initially in February, March of last year, we went out and met with all of these smaller rural councils to gauge their interest in participating. Of course, everybody said, yes, we want to be a part of it. Some of those communities in our county already had a list of priority housing needs, including some rehab, surprising number of demolition requests in these smaller communities. Like, this is the house that has to go, and we need help getting rid of it. So I believe Interfaith can play a unique role in gaining ownership through investigating kind of the previous chain of ownership and even working through some charitable contribution angles to make offers on these properties, hopefully gain ownership and remove them if necessary. So we're ready to go. We've been out continuing to meet over the last quarter, and would respectfully request that the commission approve our contract with iParametric to begin performing the work. I stand for questions.
Well, Nickerson, for example, what's your scope of work there? I know there's several properties slated to be taken down there, maybe some refurbs, but when the property's taken down, what's the plans for the particular ground that's under it?
So we would seek to resell that parcel. I know a lot of times in these smaller communities, it might be the neighbor that wants to expand their yard space. If there is an option to infill, we would certainly look at that. I know the cost to do residential infill versus the final valuation is tough to pencil out. But yeah, generally we would seek to find a new owner within the community. Interfaith is really not in the business of managing a land bank. We've tried that, and it's not necessarily a profitable venture. So engaging with the immediate neighbors if they have interest in land ownership, talking to the local government, if they know who might have interest in owning.
Well, even including the refurbs in these communities, and they say they're going to be fixed up and sold, where does the profit from that go to?
Yeah, so our priority would be owner-occupied rehabs. We have a small line of $300,000 in our budget for acquisition rehab, and in working with the county and with iParametric to not potentially create a duplication of services with SCED's resurgence program. The recommendation, if we do acquire and rehab a few, is that Interfaith retain ownership for a period of 5 years and rent those affordably before we would consider selling those to a first-time home buyer. So our intent and our plan is not to do any immediate flips.
I wasn't in on that. That's why I was asking those questions. How many properties does Interfaith Housing currently hold?
We currently own and manage 200.
I knew you had a bunch of them. I'll just voice my opinion because I'm going to here eventually. And this is general, not just with just you, Clint, but it's with what went on the past commission. I have respect with the decisions that they made, but I hate to see ownership transferred to a private organization to continue to make profit when you have a fair amount of equity in the properties that you currently own. I can appreciate fixing those things up. I won't pick on you specifically, but I think it ought to go to the community it's in. If it's a hardship for the community, I wished it would have been relinquished to them to sell and use that money within that community immediately for ownership. I don't know if there's discretion to do that from us or not, but I'd ask Randy a discretionary oversight with some of this, whether that was able to be done, because I don't feel like a private organization handed that kind of money ought to continue to retain that. It was for the hardship of the communities that it went into. And so I'm just voicing my opinion, but it ought to go back into the communities.
We would certainly be open to that. Yeah, our intent is not to make any back-end profit off of this program, but just to be, taking lead in actually, again, securing ownership. I think a lot of these communities, if we're talking Nickerson specifically, I think they've had some challenges in actually enforcing property maintenance and forcing ownership changes. So, I think we could play a role in that.
Of those properties, are they currently rental properties that need to be disposed of? Some of them.
I believe so.
I know a lot of owners. I know a lot of people out there, so that's why.
Yeah, I think, and I don't want to just keep picking on Nickerson. Great community, and actually,
they're trying really hard.
with some, with some champions of the community that have already done their due diligence in identifying. So they were one that had already had a priority list in the very first meeting, and so yeah, absolutely. If there was interest in local government in assuming ownership of that property, post rehab, I think we would be open to that. We're rural. As far as the rural communities go, we don't necessarily have as much interest in trying to manage that rental stock. We try to keep our rentals primarily in Hutch. I do want to touch Commissioner Parks as well. Looking at the scope under the Reno County Revitalization Program, there's a unique line there that says micro projects. Now, we realize that the pace of spending this fund is very critical, and doing micro grants to homeowners at $2,500 per project is going to take a lot of projects to accumulate. But there are some communities that really would like us to try and help them start a brush up program and to try to help them start a local volunteer force and engage at that level. So we wanted to keep that optional for those communities that would like to launch that sort of a program.
I think you brought up a point, and that's part of the difference between the SCEDS program and interfaith housing is the rollover. Purchase, fix, roll over, sell, come back to the same community or another community in the county and do the same thing.
Mr. Wenzel?
Well, I'll say that was, you echoed my concerns exactly. I think if we're going to give this money, it ought to go back into the community rather than being owned by interfaith housing. What requirements are put on the people that say rent or that buy properties from you or that you fix up?
Yeah, specific to the funding source, if it's a grant source or if we privately funded properties, we still stay within an affordability range, but we don't have restrictions to certify them. Whereas our grant funded properties, they will be targeted to 50% area median or sometimes 60. Very hard line qualifier to get in. And then annually we recertify to make sure they still meet the income guidelines. This may or may not be part of the question, but generally our rents compared to current market rates in town are 30% less. So nice 2-bedroom efficient unit, $550, 3-bedroom, $650, where market is quite a bit higher.
Probably a silly question, but I was on the board of Interface for 4 years at one time, and so that's back in the early days with John Scott. But the properties that you currently retain, they are on the tax roll, correct? Being a nonprofit.
We do exempt our property taxes.
Well, this is another reason I think they ought to go to somebody that buys them, and so that there's a lot of tax base missed on that many properties.
Understood. And I will counter that with the majority of our homeowner occupied rehab work is under a permit. It ultimately yields a higher property value assessment, and that increases the tax base as well. So there is some trade-off there. There's not too many organizations performing the work that we're doing in this community. But yeah, part of that ability we're paying the same insurance rates, same maintenance, same upkeep, same mortgage rates that everybody else would be paying. So part of that savings to the occupant is that property tax exemption. Good question.
Clint, I guess this is really the commissioners and your decision, but your acquisition rehabs is a really small part of your budget.
Yes, sir.
Do you want to revise your budget?
We could revise it. I will let you know that I have already secured a property on the 700 block of North Adams, very high profile. If you guys have intentionally looked at the property conditions driving, from 4th to 11th on Adams or Poplar or Monroe, you see what you see. Those properties need to be improved. Those are main corridors in this community, and I think that's representative of the housing stock in our community, and somebody needs to address that. So if you want Interfaith to address that, I would leave this line in our budget so that we do have an opportunity to intentionally acquire some of the very blighted houses that need to be brought back up.
Okay. Thanks. United Way?
Good morning. So we have been working on the child care programming in Reno County through K-Ready since 2013. Within that, we have completed a child care market needs assessment that was completed in November of 2022. It was discovered through that assessment that Reno County is meeting approximately 30% of the demand in child care. And as of Child Care Aware's latest data posted in early January, they survey providers quarterly. Our need has actually grown since the needs assessment came out. We're now meeting about 29% of the current demand and have over 2,000 slots that we have to fill to meet demand that parents have. So what we have done is we have broken the funds into two main areas, which is sustainability of current providers. That is one of the things that came out of the market study, is that providers need a way to sustain their care providing, especially home providers, as they are almost exclusively the only thing available to parents in rural Reno County. These would be based off of the Child Care Aware grants and sustainability program that the state has administered over the past 2 years. Those are ending. I know one of our centers loses their funding in March, and then the rest of our centers and providers that are receiving funding, those funds will dwindle until May. So it's our goal that we can reach at least 80% of our current providers with these funds this first year, as those sustainability grants they're currently receiving dwindle off from the state. The next scope of work is innovation around childcare to innovate their current model. So the current model that childcare uses does not work. And the reason it does not work is as universal pre-K has become more available, that is the money-making mechanism for centers and providers. It's the offset to be able to provide for children from birth to 18 months old because of ratios that the state requires. So we want to spend funds around innovative models that will help providers be able to continue to be business owners, but some of the oversight and cost sharing through a co-op would help decrease their burden throughout time as that co-op grows. I have earmarked dollars for a director of early childhood systems. That would be a person dedicated to working on this. So far, we've moved this work forward with a team of us doing the work, and it's all a little bit of our jobs. That's not sustainable for the kind of movement that we need to make to build an industry around childcare. This would be a full-time executive level position. We have explored multiple different places that this position could be housed. It's not my belief that the best fit is at the United Way. There are some better fits in our community that would be able to drive this work forward at a quicker rate. So,
What are those What's the dollar amounts on the director and the
150,000 a year.
150,000. So if you guys remember when Bradford came in, he said that that position needed to be $80,000 to $100,000 a year, and then they would probably need some sort of program budget and oversight for whatever entity.
So the wages are 150 or the total budget?
No, the total budget for the program. I earmarked the wage at 90,000. The leadership team that has been overseeing this work, there's still some uncertainty as the best place to house this position. We want to make sure that we house it in an area that can move this work forward the quickest with the best quality.
And what? Oh, reserve my. Is anybody? Question, Commissioner Hurst.
What is innovative models?
So innovative models are a couple of different things. One is the co-op and creating a co-op for childcare providers so they can have access to benefits, retirement, 401k.
That would be the money goes into that co-op. That's your innovative model?
That's one of them. And then alongside that is to experiment with cost sharing for providers. So all of the things that take providers time and cost significant money. So what would it look like for providers coming together and buying their food at bulk rates? What would it look like for paper products? What would it look like to be able to work with a business and the business saying, hey, I have a room, I would like to open a childcare, but I don't want to run it. I want you to run it. And leaving the professionals that are involved with childcare able to do childcare, and the business that needs childcare just allowing use of their space.
What I liked about your program here is that it went to services, it went to trying to develop a sustainable project rather than putting it out into actual buildings. It let the individuals use the buildings that they have or create their own business model and business plan. And so it all went to labor, so to speak, rather than the fixture. That part I like.
Commissioner Weitzel.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I was appalled by this budget. So I think we're putting a Band-Aid on the situation instead of addressing the real concerns. The real concern is the Reno County Health Department, and we need to get a handle on that. The fact that the people that inspect these facilities, every single one of our child care providers complained about them. We need to, in my opinion, get them in here and figure out what the rationale is and whether they see themselves as a hammer looking for a nail to pound or whether they're going in to actually try and help these people. Another thing that concerned me is only 38% of the budget is spent on the actual, helping the actual child care providers. I mean, $4.5 million and what, 1.7 of it is spent on the helping the child care providers. The rest is administration, hiring new people, looking at co-ops, things like that. I mean, that does not seem to me like a good deal for the county or for our child care providers. I think we're going the wrong direction here. I think rather than, because we've got ways to help people. Like if you want to open up a child care place here in Reno County, you've got to take a class with the health department. They charge $20 for it. And I think that ought to be free with what we've got, but I don't know whether that's feasible or not, but because $20 to say, hey, do I want to consider this? It's not a lot, but we might get more interest. And then we've got the inspectors who could come in and say, hey, there's money available to help with this, and so rather, looking again to work beside them rather than working against them and trying to find things they're doing wrong, because I personally don't think that our child care providers here in town are the problem. So I guess I was not happy with this budget. I was not happy with, having to create a new position to deal with a problem that we can just deal with at the county level.
So I want to respond to, first of all, the surveyors. I've been working with Carla and Megan very closely, as well as Randy, to get to the bottom of what is KDHE and what is Reno County Health Department. Because you have two separate entities. You have KDHE, who contracts with Reno County to enforce the regulations that they put into place. So you've got a couple of different levels there that we're dissecting.
Denise, I would recommend that you stay clear of some of that. Like, this commission's gonna want to address like how the administrative part of the health code is being handled today. I would encourage you to focus on salt. Like, I agree with a lot of what Commissioner Weitzel said. I do disagree with the point of, like, this is not enough money, even if we gave every dollar to support current providers. And so I think what they're trying to do with innovative models is like leverage some sort of solution, whether it's a model where you find more money or you fix other problems. So I agree with that, but like, that's where I'd encourage you to spend your time. And we're running out of time. Did you have some more? Okay.
Yeah,
does anyone else have?
I just wanted to comment on the tours that we took with Randy when we went around. I found 4 departments in the county crying out because we had a house for children that were removed from homes to be taken to down on 3rd Street. They currently still have the funding. I've talked to them at great length. They have the resources to do something. But I assume probably the same thing we're running into here. They cannot find the manpower to be able to keep that place open. They've got still an active board, plenty of resources to run it, but it's not open. And that's been an assumed burden on the county to transport those kids around, to different places. And I know the police department, the sheriff's department has issues with that. But there was 4 departments that expressed it. And it broke my heart because children are the ones our future we need to spend our time looking at. There's a lot of mental health issues today, drug issues, those kinds of things. I don't want to get sidebarred here, but those people have made a choice and babies don't, and they do need good quality care. But of these dollars, is there any possibility that could be a focus to help them get that facility back open and running?
So I'm not going to speak to that. The Children's Emergency Shelter is a United Way agency, and I know that our executive director, Lisa Gleason, has been working with them since they closed over a year ago to try to find solutions. So I have not been involved with those conversations, so I don't feel like I'm in a good place to speak to that. Okay. But I do know that there are people helping them.
I understand that, yeah. I knew they were looking some other avenues, and I told her to help her too if I could, so I've got some ideas with them as well, but I'd like to see that open back up. My last question real quickly, every dollar of this will stay in Reno County through United Way?
Every dollar will stay in Reno County.
Thanks, Denise. Are commissioners ready?
Yes.
To vote today?
We need to get started on this. It's taken us way too long as it is, so I'm definitely in favor of starting on this approval process, and just make a motion. I move to approve the ARPA subrecipient agreement with South Central Kansas Economic Development District for $500,000. I think you want to take them separate, don't we?
Sure. It's a motion by Commissioner Hurst. A second. Motion fails without a second. Do you want to try a different one?
Nope.
Okay. Are there any other motions that want to be made on this?
Why aren't we wanting to do something today? Is it because we haven't looked at it enough, or what?
I might make a suggestion here. I think this is a lot of money. and there's 3 new commissioners, and I can tell some of the commissioners are uncomfortable for a number of reasons. I would suggest that the commissioners take some time to talk to each of the individual recipients, sub-recipients in the next 2 weeks.
Well, contractually, I don't have a problem knowing that we're locked into it and we probably need to move forward. I don't think that's a concern of mine. My concern has always been where the dollars went. We had a line up on the screen a little bit ago for sewer and water projects, which we have some major expenses coming. And I think my contention with this whole deal has been that could have defrayed costs for several years out of the county budget, and the likelihood of fixing those problems in a couple of different communities where they have no potable water is going to come back on those residents as rate increases. And I think we're in here to do a job that's responsible for them. And I don't have a reservation with passing these because, as you said, Patrick, we're legally bound to lock into those. So I don't think that's my hesitation. But in the future, I want us to be apprised that we're here to work for the people. And I think that was what should have. A lot of them were not heard through this process correctly.
I guess to clarify a little bit, just what I think we're locked into. The commissioners did pass a resolution, and that's including your packet in September, and it did broadly budget the money. But they haven't passed yet the details of the budget that's been submitted. So I do think there is room for you guys. I think you're being asked to look at the specific budgets. I don't think you're locked in. I think there is some locking in, or whatever you call it, from going from those broad figures to doing a completely different direction. But I don't think I think it's appropriate for you guys to question the specific budgets today.
To have some oversight through the thing.
So Randy and I, and mostly Randy and not me a little bit, and then the consultant and people have been, and the individual entities have been working on programs and proposed budgets since September. I mean, so this is the first time that the product of those discussions and review of and proposals has been before the commissioners. So this is the first time that's ever been represented since the broad allocations were made. So that's kind of where we're at. But I would agree also with the comment of just, there is also a time factor where these programs at some point have to happen, or else we're not going to get the money done, and it's not going to do any good. So anyway.
No, I am understanding. We've got oversight. If we pass these today and we talk to these people and we see where we have some oversight and some input.
When you guys approve the program, they have to follow the program to get the money. So I guess the oversight, in my opinion, is county staff will be checking what they actually spend it on, and we won't be, it'll have to go toward the program that they've approved. In other words, you know, if they say they're going to spend it on A, B, they can't submit an invoice for F, E, and get that money. But once you guys approve the program, then yeah, it's approved. So that's a big step.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but there's quarterly and semi-annual reports that have to be not only turned into the county, but also to the federal treasurer on the expenditure of funds to make sure that they're following the OMB regulations that are set out by that award of funds.
A motion.
Yeah. You're absolutely right.
I might, Randy, just one thing about this. I wish we could have used some of this money for some of these other projects that help an individual community. But if we start that, where do you stop? Any community that comes up and uses broad-based tax funds for a community, I don't think that's fair either. So most of the water and sewer are all based upon revenue generated by that water or that sewer. And so that's one thing that I think enters into this a whole lot, is that we can't, it's hard for a commission to just dedicate, say, $1 million to Yoder, and then another community comes up, Highlands, why don't we dedicate $1 million to Highlands? You know, I understand that that's a predicament, but it's something that it's always been a user-funded and needs to be a user-funded. I don't know whether that helps any or not.
Well, it does. I mean, you have Sylvia that has no potable water, and the city has to provide water for them, and I think that's more of an emergency situation than some of these. And that's really my reservation with that, was that it was specifically earmarked from the federal government. You could use it for that, and I understand that. So there would have been no questions over how it was used, and it's pretty liberal the way it can be used anyway.
Yeah, it is.
It is, yeah. And so
And I guess for me, I've got no problem approving the SCED funding, so I'll second the motion if it's made again. On the interfaith stuff, I'd like to see a change in their budget to put these houses back in the community. And then with the United Way, I'd like to see a change in the budget to get more of this money into the child care providers' hands rather than it being spent on administration and hiring a new administrator and things like that. You know, they could work with the county to identify people, and then, you know, the people that are looking at it and say, hey, there's money from the United Way available. And I wouldn't want to put a whole lot of extra restrictions on it the way the United Way does sometimes with things. And so, I mean, those would be my reserves with the interfaith housing and with the United Way thing, is I don't like the way they're spending the money.
I looked at that also when I've been working with this, and when I talked to Bradford, I went up to Manhattan and talked with him because I had some questions on a lot of different things. And our problem with the child care is that we're scattered between United Way, Community Foundation, who else? And there's 2 or 3 others are scattered between that, and you need one person. I don't like to hire people, okay? But I see a need in this so that there is one person in charge of this program that can keep it going and develop new methods of how we get money into the hands of those child care providers. And I think we talked about this, that it was in, you see the program up there, that it would only be up to 3 years. After that, then something will have to be figured out. And so maybe that's that 3-year period that we're trying to figure out how to be self-sustaining, whether it can ever be or not. But that's where this person with some adequate knowledge and can come up with that. And so outside of that, I wouldn't want to look at it beyond that 3-year period.
I think it's 5 years if I remember correctly. Is that right?
It's through 2026.
So
It's 3.
4 years.
So
4 years, okay.
Yeah, is that what you're wrong?
It's not
right.
determined to be a.
Well, but at the same time, though, they've still got an extra 20 hours of administrative time factored in there, even with hiring this person.
Okay, I kind of know where you're at. Commissioner Bogner, where are you at?
I'd say on the SCED deal, I could go along with it. And that's what we're handling them one at a time.
Yeah, I really feel like to do this right, like you guys are new, I don't think taking another 2 or 3 weeks for you to talk to the 3 sub-recipients, get comfortable, is going to harm this effort. And I'd rather we try to have a consensus here than I feel like we're about to vote and then nobody's really happy. And it's like, well, we gave them 5 minutes to communicate with you. And I think you'd be more happy if you, and there might be some changes in the scope. Like I got a few changes that I'd like to see. If you guys want to approve it today, I'm okay with that.
Are we in a position to micromanage all of these things? I don't know that we are that's our duty to micromanage the programs. It was set up, Daniel, with a lot of contemplation and a lot of discussion prior to this. And I thought there was a pretty good plan. I realized we didn't think anything, but I'm sure that Denise and I'm sure Clint, if you talk to them and have some ideas, I'm sure they will incorporate some of those things.
Well, I'm going to make a motion then, or I'm going to move on. I mean, I will, I'm very supportive of all 3. I know this will get through. I'm pretty confident this will get through.
Well, I think they need to get started too.
I do too.
And
I think we
get
need-
things passed, but it's my contention, I would like to see the impact of the finances fall upon the communities where they're going in, and nothing reciprocal other than SCED. I understand your program because I was familiar with it too, that it's a reciprocal thing there. But I mean, as far as retaining ownership and rentals, I would rather see every bit of the dime go back towards the community somehow. That was my only real contention, to make the greatest impact on each of those communities.
Well,
Because it's kind of found money, and it doesn't have to be part of your budget from here on, as far as I'm concerned. And so you were maintaining, this is a great program, and I think it is a great service you're going to provide. I honestly do. I'm behind it. But I just don't think we enriching nonprofits, that's not what we're here to do.
Well,
They're here to preserve, they're here to provide a service, and that's what I think you're doing. I really
It
agree
should be
with it.
generated back into the county. We should have an ROI on this.
Well, my thought is if you have individual comments and you're going to try to tweak it in a motion today, I think it would be better to communicate with the subrecipients and then vote on it at the next regular meeting. But, you know, you're all for it, or you're welcome to make a motion.
Commissioners, because you need to agree to the program, because once that has been adopted and the budget's been set, you guys don't have as much say at that point. So if there are changes you want in that, whether it's the budget or the program, we need to, as a commission, the 5 of you need to come to an agreement between all 5 of you that all of you will vote for of what changes.
Well,
So
that's
even
what
if
I'm
you have-
saying. If we want to change something, take the 3 weeks, talk to these guys, get informed, and come back. And
it may be longer
give them a chance. Like they can't articulate everything they're wanting to do. You didn't have the advantage of sitting through 6 hours of meetings on this. So,
But Commissioner Friesen, the one problem with that is as they talk individually to the entities, we won't know what the majority is willing to change.
They'll be informed, and that's all I wanted.
Well, that's what I was getting at. What, if we want kind of a consensus as to what we want to require, when do we get to talk to each other? Because we've got open meetings we got to worry about. We can't go, be somewhere and visit what we think's.
We have a planning session next week. Is that something that we already have an agenda for that? But
There would be other items that could be added.
that's something we could talk about.
Just looking at allocation of funds, agreeing to allocate the funds to these folks. We can work on the rest as we go, but I think we're working on approving the allocations so that they can develop their plans.
We've already approved the allocations. This is the agreement that we're approving today.
This approves their plans. So that's where if
I'll
there's...
make one more motion. I move to approve the ARPA recipient agreement with South Central Kansas Economic Development District for $500,000.
Commissioner Hurst makes a motion.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Weitzel. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hurst.
Yes.
Commissioner Parks.
Yes.
Commissioner Bogner.
Yes.
Commissioner Weitzel.
Yes.
And Commissioner Friesen.
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. Are there other motions?
I would motion that we table the agreements with the United Way and Interfaith Housing to give us a chance to talk to them and give them a chance to revise their budget.
Commissioner Weitzel motions to table items 10E and F. Is there a second? I'd second that. Discussion on this?
Other just them taking into advisement kind of the feelings, the general conversations we've had here today. If they could revise those things and bring them back a little bit, it would be a good thing to do.
How about on our work study session, we call that a meeting then, and we get that information, because I don't think we need to wait.
No,
Another month.
I would, yeah, next Tuesday would be a great thing to get that finalized and get it done if we could by then, so.
All right, we'll
If you
take that.
Everybody agree to having that for next Tuesday, then I would be in favor of that. Outside of that, I wouldn't be.
I don't see why that wouldn't be. Yeah, if everybody can talk to people before then, that's fine. Any other discussion? There's a motion on the table. To table.
I would suggest that maybe we give the information. If you have things you want to change on that, give them to Randy and let him present it to. That way there's one voice talking, okay? Thank you for letting me say an extra thing.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hurst?
Yes.
Commissioner Pop?
Yes.
Marks, excuse me.
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitesall? Commissioner Friesen?
Yes. Okay, motion passes 5-0. We're going to take a break till 10 before noon, and then get back here.
How many minutes? 5, 10, 5?
10 before noon.
Huh?
10 to noon.
sometimes.
We're going to go ahead and call this meeting back to order. As I said, Daniel needed to step out. His wife had an appointment that he needed to be present with. He'd asked me to take over. I think the next item on the agenda was 10G, the legislative platform that we were going to have Randy address.
Stand up here this time. At a meeting of the commission in December, it was requested that I put together a bullet list of some legislative items, even though the Kansas legislature is already in session. So this is kind of coming in a little late. The commissioners at that time asked me to bring, at a meeting in January, a bullet list of possible legislative priorities. So I included in the packet a publication notices, and this is to review House Bill 2205 that was from 2021 and 2022 that I believe it kind of died in committee. The committee chair, I believe, didn't even let a vote on it. But what this does is addresses counties or the ability to have legal notices in the official county newspaper or on the website. And it kind of changes that process. Right now, all the legal notices we have to put in the local newspaper, and prices are continually increasing. We don't know what price they're going to charge. For us, they're out of like a different state. They're a national company, and so this kind of would be a legislative priority for that committee to look at this again, to look at one of these bills. Maybe it would have to be a new bill because I think they're only good for 2 years. So it'd be a new bill. I don't know if the House has one in place right now that they're looking at. This is kind of so that local government doesn't really have to, I guess, subsidize local newspapers. If more people are looking at it online. The next one is property taxes on the revenue neutral rate. And this I know Butler County is working on this to change some language in the statute that if there's a problem with the R&R that was caused by a third-party error, that the county is not responsible to refund that money because of the mistake. What could happen is I'll use Reno County, this didn't happen to us, but if we sent something to the newspaper for publication, and we have a deadline that we're going to go above the R&R rate, and for whatever reason the publication doesn't get it printed on time and it's late, I believe by statute we can't go above the R&R because we didn't do our duty to get it published by a certain date. Or if maybe they cut something out on accident, cut out a number, it could cause us to not have followed the R&R process. But that wasn't all our fault. It would be a third party. So there's some language that Butler County's, I know, proposing to their legislators to make some changes to that so that the third party error does not fall back on the county. Property valuation, this one's the same as from last year, that Reno County supports the KAC priority of tax valuation and appeals. A fair and consistent appraisal process is important for our citizens. And then constitutional home rule, another one that KAC has in their statement. This is just kind of supporting that statement of KAC's. Community corrections, increase state funding for community corrections as our costs go up, as the block grant that is given is sent to community corrections sometimes stays flat. At some point, that affects services. So this is for the state to look at those ever increasing costs to send to community corrections. And then a statement, public health, funding for public health should be enhanced and substantially modified annually to support the increasing cost of some mandated services that we may have from the state. That's kind of an overview of legislative priorities.
A constitutional home rule has to be changed by a constitutional vote.
Right.
there's only about 3 or 4 items in those 39 statutes that I think KAC is primarily interested in changing, isn't it?
They did, at that meeting, did address up there the postage issues and the publication issues, and a lot of the counties expressed it. Don would probably reiterate that up there, that it's getting more and more expensive, and they're having problems with trying to get publications out, so I know we do here.
A lot of them don't have a local newspaper to get in the right places.
We're there too.
Yeah.
The revenue neutral rate, I think it ought to be the county ought to follow it up, because if we're not getting adequate notice to our citizens, no matter what the reason, I think counties ought to do it early enough, and if we keep it this way, they'll learn and they'll start doing it early enough to where it's not a deal. And the property valuation thing, that was just because, I'm in support of the way it currently is. But the constitutional home rule, and then being able to post stuff online rather than through the newspaper, I'm in support of those.
The one problem with getting things in on time is because the state, in their legislative and their brilliant minds, put our dates that we have, the minimum time, so close together with the publication time. That's where the biggest problem runs into. They set the dates up where it's very difficult to talk to the clerk about that.
And I think cities and counties are getting that done, but the problem would be is if whoever's printing it, not the county, but the publication, doesn't meet their deadlines.
Or
then we're
correctly
penalized.
They make a mistake in a number.
Yeah.
And this publication's in support of those things being put in place through the state legislatures, basically is what you're saying. The reason for this,
the reason, for that one on the...
No, not any of the issues, you discussing these things.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've explained kind of what,
Yeah.
Well, I think he's going to ask for us to vote to approve or deny this.
Or modify. Yeah, you guys can, this is really your legislative statement. I put the bullet list kind of what we had last year and things, and talking with some staff and looking at listservs of what's going on that I thought was important, but at the end it is your guys' policy.
Any discussions?
Potential Senate bill, and I don't remember what the number was, but I think we ought to look at that. I think it's 22 or 27, something like that. It hasn't been put in yet, but.
And what that was for which one?
Senate bill.
Senate bill for?
I just read it yesterday and
Okay.
But I did think it was worthwhile to look at from a county standpoint.
What did it do, Ron? What did it do?
That's what I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, but I'll get it to Randy, okay?
Word.
It hasn't even been introduced yet, but it's been written.
So if it's okay with you guys, I'd like to vote on the constitutional home rule and the newspaper versus posting it online thing separately.
I think
this is just.
It's one statement, one policy. So if you want to make changes, I think my recommendation is you guys come to a consensus of what changes. I will then draft it and bring it back at another meeting.
Those are the only two I was
we
really,
vote on. It's just.
Yeah, those are the only two I was really in favor of.
This is just more general discussion, yeah.
Well,
What changes were you wanting to make in that town?
No. Like we're sending this to somebody, right?
If you approved it at some point, we would, but of course,
Right.
as the legislature's in session, if we postpone too much, it could be a discussion for next year's.
Yeah, it won't get seen if we don't get it there.
But yeah, there's obviously next year, and some of the things are ever.
What would you want to change? I didn't catch what you said.
I was wanting to separate out the, because those are the only two that I'll vote for, the newspaper thing, and then the constitutional home rule.
Well, really, property valuation, Randy, we don't have a lot of choice in some of those matters anyway. I mean, that's.
It's just supporting Casey.
These are
This
just-
one's supporting Casey's policy.
We're supporting these policies of the KAC primarily.
We want to continue to have home rule on some issues for sure. So, I mean, that gives us some legal powers outside of the state to be able to do some things, obviously.
I was,
Further discussion?
yeah, on that home rule, I mean, there was a piece in the paper here recently about, you know, opt out on certain bills and various things that would give us chances to tweak it to our county versus just blanket. But,
Do you see anything wrong with any of these? If I may, do you see anything wrong with any of these?
I really don't. Home rule, could you run that real quick just to give, I mean, we've been through it. John, maybe help him a little bit or something.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the ones I'm in favor of.
Do what?
That's one of the ones I'm in favor of, making
Oh,
it
you are,
constitutional.
home rule, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, home rule is just, like I think we said, like the more cities from, it's kind of a strange situation where city government has home rule, broader home rule than counties. And just gives you guys more control over a broader range of things. And the KAC is always in support of expanding home rule, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Because right now it's by statute, and I think this is, make it part of the Kansas Constitution.
Actually, there's 39 statutes regarding non-home rule for counties.
So what's the changes or revisions that was brought up? You're just in support of only a few things and not all of them? Okay, all right.
well, the valuation's pretty much, if you talk to the appraiser, that's pretty much
That's set by you.
set by,
Cap said it can't go up so much.
Community corrections, I think, is pretty important that we be able to get enough money to follow at least closely to our increase in cost. And public health, the same kind of a situation as people require more services or need more. If we get things come up that are tough to handle, we kind of like some more funds to help that out. And actually, what percentage of it, a big percentage of that is all grants, primarily through the funding mechanism
Right
that
now,
supplies a lot of it.
Currently, the public health fund is only about 30% property taxes, the rest grants and reimbursements. This would be to continue to support the state to allow for more money to go to all counties based on the formula they have for local aid.
Well, I've moved to approve the legislative platform as listed.
I'll second that.
Second, Don. Further, I don't know if further discussion or?
Discussion
I
and then
think
vote.
discussion's done. I think we could vote, couldn't we?
Call for the
I'll
vote.
call for a roll call.
Commissioner Hurst,
Yes.
Commissioner Parks,
Yes.
Commissioner Bogner,
Yes.
Commissioner Weitzel,
No.
My reports are, want me just to stay up here?
Go ahead and you do your report, yeah.
Okay. I wanted to mention, just for the public, that tomorrow, local government day in Topeka, so on the 25th, and there's going to be 3 commissioners at that event, or at least 3. So it's not an open meeting, but just publicly acknowledge that there will be 3 commissioners up in Topeka at the Capitol, or around the Capitol.
I'm driving separate accounts.
That'll
help.
Obviously, if you guys
We'll
do,
keep it from- yes.
you'll be in the same reception and different things, and you just don't talk county business. But attached is monthly reports. For this, the one that's attached on this one, this has all the county departments. What we started last year was the first meeting would have half departments, and the second meeting of the month would have the other half, so that you guys wouldn't be bombarded with every department at one time. We put them all at this meeting because of not having a second meeting in December. it kind of got us off track. So this is getting us back on track. In February, they'll be split again, half the departments at each meeting. So, and this really is the chance for each department to kind of go over, staffing issues, their budget issues, or major projects or events or concerns that they have in their department. Do you guys have any questions on what was in this packet? And then so and this is related to the ARPA agreements, next commission meeting. Next week is the 5th Tuesday, January 31st. I was trying to get that as a work session for the commission. As mentioned, there's a couple items that we want to discuss. Chairman Friesen is not available. He will not be here next Tuesday. So you guys can go ahead and we can have the session to talk about the ARPA agreements and go into the work session after that for a couple pretty big items. Or you can move it to February 7th. He is available. I don't know about you guys. We could move the meeting to February 7th, start it with just the ARPA business meeting, and then recess into a work session. It's kind of what you guys want, whether you want to do it next week or the 7th when Chairman Friesen's available.
Discussion?
Yeah. I think it would be good to put it off to February 7th. I don't know, that would give everyone who wants to comment to Randy about changes that they might like, that would give you guys a chance to do that. Also him a chance to go back then and meet with the other people, because you never know how many things are on this week for certain people. So what do you think about that?
Just moving the ARPA part of it to the 7th of the whole meeting?
ARPA.
Well, I was thinking, did you want the whole thing and the work sessions and not meet at all tomorrow or next week? The ARPA, that would be important probably to wait till the 7th, because we'll have the agenda, if we have it next week, the agenda packets and the information we're going to need by the end of the day tomorrow to really get it out to you, so it doesn't give you much time. Yeah. The extra week will help you guys, any questions you have for the two entities that were here earlier today. The work session, there are pretty good size items about sewer districts and shooting range. But Chairman Friesen, it's whether you want to wait or just have that next week without him here.
Well, I think you're right, Ron. He had some concerns for today too. It'd be good to have him in on that meeting. But I don't want to delay the ARPA any longer than we have to.
Yeah.
That was kind of also said today. So, and he had indicated he was okay when he left if we had the meeting, but I hate to exclude him from that too as well. So what's the feelings?
I think we should move it on to February.
Okay, but are we still going to have a work session then at all Tuesday? Just cancel it? All right. Next.
That would be up to you. I would say if you're going to move one, you might as well just move both. And the February 7th, since there's a February 14th meeting, that's a normal business meeting. Since you're having one on the 7th, the only business would maybe be accounts payable and the ARPA agreements. So we would limit it to a very short part of the meeting, so then we would go into a work session for the rest of the morning.
Okay, I understand what you're doing. That'd work for me.
Okay, we're in agreement. Do we need a motion to just
as long as you guys are in agreement, then that's how Shonda and I will prepare the meetings.
Will that give you sufficient time? You'll be pushed if we have it
for the ARPA?
For the 31st, the ARPA, right?
Yeah, it'll be pushed just because otherwise we would take the time and we could have it next week, but you probably won't see any revised agreements until the day of, just because of timing.
Also, if I might ask, have the department heads that might want to attend, have they already scheduled this in for the work session? Or
Yes.
will they be able to schedule it another
I
week.
know for the shooting range, the sheriff and his staff, they were preparing for next week. And I believe Don was for the sewer district discussion. I haven't checked with them, but I would assume that the sheriff's office did indicate to me if it got changed, they would work around it.
Okay, all right, okay. Don could work around it. Okay.
If he'd be ready by next week, the next week he'll be ready too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like we're moving it up.
Okay.
Anything else?
That's what I have to know.
Moving to item 12, County Commission reports. You have anything to report?
Well, we were up at the, Randy and I both were up at the county, our Association of County Commissioners, Kansas, and met a lot of people from all over Kansas, and some things that came up there. Took a few notes. The biggest thing is I think the people we had in charge earlier did a pretty good job of covering us on, like when they talked about insurance issues, legal issues, and these department head tours we took. As they were bringing this stuff up, and I thought about those tours we took, I think our people are keeping us in a good position. Something that was handed out there, I don't know whether, apparently the state had agreed at some point to share so many of the funds, rather than have them collected locally, they collected statewide and shared various percentages back with the counties. And we got a sheet of paper here showing us that suddenly they decided they weren't going to send them back to us. And it amounts to a heck of a lot of dollars yearly. And so my question would be, are the counties as a whole, it'd be beneficial for every county to claim what we're supposed to be getting. So I want to do a little checking and see what caused this to happen. If our legislature changed what was originally there, whether it's individuals changing things, but there's a whole lot of dollars that should be coming back to us that we shouldn't be having to go to our citizens for a second time. And I just kind of wondered what can legally be done about it and some various questions. So that's something that come out of there that I thought kind of demanded some attention. And I'm looking. Don't know where it's going to lead me, but I'm looking.
Anything else?
No.
John, your comments or anything?
Well, it's an honor to be part of this board and to help make a difference in the county. One thing I think in the future that I would hope that we might consider is holding these meetings when people that have jobs could come in and do, because I know that's one of the reasons I attended very few of these meetings in the past was because it was always while I was working. And so maybe that's something we can consider in the future. And of course, keeping everything transparent. I'm an open book. My cell phone is, once I get on the website, my cell phone will be on there. And, I'm happy to talk with anybody about county business except for these guys. I think the more voices we hear, the better things will be. So.
One thing we need to consider here, and Randy and Daniel, is the first quarter of each year is Reno County's turn to host a quad county. And a quad county is Reno, Harvey, Butler, and Sedgwick. And so it's our turn to host that this quarter. So that's one thing might catch you planning on doing.
What is that? Can you...
Those four counties get together once every quarter.
Brandy?
Yeah, and
Phil?
it's Sedgwick, Butler, Harvey, Reno County. It was created years ago as kind of for planning departments and zoning, but it's kind of morphed into, it's a chance for county commissioners, a couple county commissioners from each county, maybe road and bridge staff, maybe planning staff, and administrators to kind of meet once a quarter, talk about what's going on, see if there are any shared interests or shared issues that we all need to be aware of.
We talk about different things such as what we should be keeping in reserves and what other counties are doing with regard to reserves and what they're doing regarding police vehicles, sheriff's vehicles, that type of thing.
It's, again, once a quarter. It lasts about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. The host community provides lunch, and then you eat and have discussion for about an hour to 2 hours.
Where's that held at? Typically,
we decide.
It rotates among the 4 counties, so the first quarter we'll just decide here. Last year we had it at the landfill.
Oh, okay.
Their new conference
facility. Yeah.
Okay. Year before, I think we had it out at the airport.
Be something for further discussion, I guess.
You bet. Here for later. I prepared something as I thought about having new commissioners and old commissioners. It applies to both of us, whether we're first year or sixth year. So I want to read this. Each one of us, in our endeavor to represent our district and county government, we all had to apply a party label to ourselves to get elected. Now that each one of us is elected to the position as a county commissioner, we represent not only those in our districts, but have to decide what is best for the almost 64,000 people in Reno County. I trust that each of us considers that an awesome responsibility. Each of us has a responsibility to study, become knowledgeable of what comes before us, weigh both short-term and long-term consequences of our decisions. We need to articulate why we believe is the best direction to go to our fellow commissioners. Discuss our position and work out a decision that is best for Reno County. We are not elected to represent the citizens because of a what I want attitude or what my political party wants attitude, but what each of us believe through due diligence is best for Reno County. In our position, I believe it is important to realize we need to be a servant leader, not just look upon ourselves as a leader. There will be times when we are going to vote different, but let us amiably disagree, remain positive, and go on to the next item. We as a commission have to make tough decisions based on the information we have at this time. We are not perfect, and new circumstances may come up where we will have to revisit the direction we thought best. Let not our seeing things differently interfere with this commission's ability to make sound decisions agreeably and without taking it personally. As a commissioner, we all receive requests from citizens, especially as being a new commissioner, if it's the same way it was when I was a new commissioner. We get several questions. Everybody wants something done. Take time to investigate those. Speak with our administrator first before getting personally involved. Then, a visit with a department director may be suggested. This method will save future headaches for you, the administrator, the county councilor, and department heads. I'm looking forward to this coming year with how we can grow this county, economically, physically, and in a positive manner. To me, moving forward is the only feasible alternative. Thanks for letting me air that.
Appreciate that, Ron. Thank you. I don't have a whole lot to say after these gentlemen, but I will say that it was a good meeting. We went to the KAC meeting, had gleaned a lot of things from it. Don and I sat at lunch a couple of times and talked about what did we get ourselves into. So after the legal representative talked in front of us. But knowing that we, as you said, Ron, have a mission to go forward and do some positive things for the county, I look forward to doing that. I feel privileged, blessed, and I definitely want to fulfill that servant leadership role as a commissioner for the people. I've been invited to a couple of city meetings that I'll attend here in the future. Probably come back with some things to the meeting as well from those, and I'm thankful that they want me to be there, and so I want to represent well if I can, and so it'll be a good time to be on the commission. I think there's a lot of challenges right now in society, obviously, and a lot of challenges financially, and I think we'll move through them well. And I want to reiterate what Don said. After having gone through, we didn't have a chance in the last meeting with Randy and the meetings with the department heads. I was very, very thrilled with what I seen, and the efficiency that they're trying to run at, and the presentations that they put on, and there's a lot of misconceptions in the public, a lot of misconceptions probably internally here as to what they do and what they are, and I was just very thrilled with what we found. And so I think they do a great job. I commend them for that. You as well, Randy. I think you do a great job. Thank you for what you do. And with that, that's all I have to say.
I forgot to mention one thing, if I may take time.
No problem.
In past years, we've had, each one of us have put together a list of things that we think we ought to accomplish, or things we need to look at doing next year. And I'm just wondering if you think their visit with Daniel or Randy visit with Daniel and see if that would be something that all you commissioners would like.
That was something you addressed, wasn't it, Randy, a little bit?
Yes, in my weekly report, I mentioned I was going to bring that up. I didn't bring it up today since Commissioner Friesen was gone and he is the chair.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure that because I think it is important to schedule a time that's maybe not even on county property, but somewhere off hours, whatever, it'd be open to the public if they wanted to show up, of course. But I want to be televised just to talk about your strategic goals, priorities, what you want to see done this year and next year, so that staff can properly prepare our 24 budget, and also what you expect to see from us this year. So I think that, and the sooner we do that, the better.
Yeah. Okay.
Several meetings back, before we were sworn in, there was a list of items that were already in the works and what might potentially be in the works. And we never sat down and really talked about that sheet of paper.
Right.
I went home and I numbered mine immediately. I can cross a bunch of them off because they're already taken care of. But to me, that's a good idea, that we discuss what we think we got coming up and kind of what we're working towards when we're doing that.
Was that list something you sent out that they were working off of? Carryover stuff?
That was just a list I had created of the known projects were either worked on, started last year, or working on this year, or are soon to come before you. I can resend that to everyone.
Would you resend that to everyone so we all have that? That would be helpful.
Because I think, you guys.
So they don't overlap, those kinds of things too.
Yeah.
So, okay. Any further comments? Well, if not, I'll so move to adjourn this meeting. Second. All right, this done? All right. We are dismissed.